With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Precision Racing League makes its way to Virginia, and it is a motorsports fan's heaven. We land at the Virginia International Raceway for another GT3 doubleheader of racing action. Hello everyone, welcome along to RaceSpotTV and the Precision Racing League GT3 Fix Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined as always alongside by Joey Tebben as we get ready for not one but two GT3 races. Don't forget you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing2 throughout today's racing action. Joey, we are almost at the halfway mark. We're also a week away from a race that everyone will have plenty of practice at. But today at VIR, I think we know what we're in for. It's going to be a difficult one for them all, with 3 races already under their belts.
There's a couple of drivers, I think, there's a small percentage of drivers who would say VIR is their favorite track in the world. And those drivers have been looking forward to this week for the first 3 seasons of the year. They say, VIR, you know what, I really want to go there. Nobody else is going to be good there. I'm going to be great there. Everybody else in the field is thinking, it's VIR. That's a lot of corners. There's not a lot of margin for error. There's huge seas of grass on the outside of the track that suck you in the second you put 2 tires off. It is one of the ultimate challenges. It's going to be a very, very difficult race, but then, as you say, once we get over this, we do end up at Spa, a place where most drivers can probably drive in their sleep. Then they'll be put to sleep at the Circuit Zolder, and then we'll be back to normal at Road Atlanta and some familiar tracks to end the season.
Joey Tebben's bias is already clear, but that's a look at the schedule that lies in front of us, as of course we make our way all the way into the month of August and through the end of August as well. Here's how the championship standings line up right now. Of course, Errol Urexoy has grabbed the championship lead and a 23-point advantage, but it's not the same sort of runaway way that we've seen from the likes of Gary Brown in the past. Victory's a little bit more spread out and the pace a little bit more even throughout the entirety of the field. Greg Doucette, Sully Sada tied on 138 points apiece. John Jones 10 points further back. Our race 1 winner finds himself just in front of Ray Dominguez. That's of course how the team Drivers' Championship lines up, and that means that we can take a look at the Team Championship as well, where we are starting to see a bit of a breakaway from Vulture Motorsport South, of course led by Errol Urexoy. Throttle Thursday led by Greg Doucette sits second, while SRT Esport Green sit in third. Team Championship always difficult to be consistent, although I think they've been slightly aided, Joey, by the fact that the last 2 weeks, including tonight, we have a slightly smaller field to contend with.
Slightly smaller, and when you have a small field and you have big teams, that's basically going to guarantee you to get quite a few points. In the PRL, you can have 3 drivers per team. Only 2 of those drivers, the top 2 of those drivers on that team, will score points for the team in any given race. So if you extend your net even wider, if you have multiple teams, you have a lot of drivers, understandably, you're going to have a high percentage of scoring lots of points. And that's why you do see Vulture Motorsports South with some of the fastest drivers in this series absolutely running away with things. But Throttle Thursday, they've been getting better and better every season with Greg Doucette, Nicholas Carangis, Matt Dinsmore, PRL stalwarts. It might be a 69-point lead right now, but it's never over. Bad luck can always strike.
Still very early in the season as well. Don't forget, the first 9 rounds are eligible to be dropped. Any one of them can be dropped from your championship score, but you head into the final round of the season and you must deliver once we make our way all the way on over to Phillip Island. And boy, that's a difficult track. You don't want to leave yourself with a lot to do. Before we take a look at the tracks working their way out for qualifying, it's time to thank those that make all of this possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount also using the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Mechasim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mechasim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed. Muradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit muradness.com. And last but not least, the newest member of the PRL family, Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. Like I mentioned, drivers already out on track for 20 minutes of open qualifying, and Matt Arnold, once again finds himself at the front, but this time it's only 400s back to Sully Saad, who finds himself in second spot. Greg Doucette, the next half still left on track because John Jones, our week 1 winner, has decided he wants to head back down to pit lane along with Matt Arnold with 6 minutes to go for some fresh tyres, and they get set for one final blast to that checkered flag.
We're kind of looking at the old Sully Saad here. When he made his PRL debut a couple of seasons ago, he was fighting for wins. I remember a great race at Coda a couple of seasons ago in this series. He came so close to getting that first win, but as of late, for the past maybe season, he's been a little bit off pace, hasn't quite been fighting for the wins. He's still been strongly in the top 10, been fighting for top 5s, but we haven't seen one of those charges to the front from Sully Saad in quite a few weeks, and he is back up front. This is the closest he's been, and it's looking like a great chance for him to get his first win at a place where track position's immensely important. If you can make a move early on lap 1, maybe keep that leader company until the pit cycle comes around, you are definitely going to be in a good position. So Sully Saad loves these long American circuits. Like at Coda, I don't think anybody would say Coda's similar to VIR, but for Sully Saad it is.
And no improvement that time by. Almost runs a little bit wide out of turn 3, which is one of the nastiest corners on the track. The RIP Oak Tree corner also very difficult, as is the entry into that section at the end of the back straightaway, but I think turn 3, just by the nature of its blind entry, no real references from which to work, does tend to be the most frustrating. A couple of drivers improving. Benati's up to 4th. I saw Reagan Chandler up to 12th spot, but I guess we shouldn't be too surprised that it's Porsche 1, 2, 3, 4. Greg Doucette, the first of the non-Porsches.
Lots of changes here. You can see there's still some life left in the track with 3 minutes to go. So Jared Keenhop up to 3rd there. Doucette's up. Like I said, Benati's up. Aero Urexoy's up 3 spots. There's clearly time out there if drivers want to improve. Matt Dinsmore up to P12. I don't know if the track is cooling down right now or what. Actually, that was Baron Hilton, rather. But he's still advanced a couple positions forward. Still only 29th, but there's lots and lots of time on the track here. I think everybody's going to want to go out one more time because everybody's finding lap time. Let's see if Eric Kulaga does.
Yeah, let's see Eric Kulaga come towards the line. There's not going to be an improvement there. And so we'll have to now wait and see what he'll do behind with 2.5 minutes probably to run when he... Sorry, 1 and a bit minutes left to run by the time he gets back to the line. He has maybe 2 attempts to go, and that will be it. Like I mentioned, still Porsche 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just keep that, keep your eye on that as we head into the next part of the evening when we get to the sprint series, where it will be basically just Porsches at the front. There's Roy Brown in one of those Team Beef cars. 47 Ford seems to be struggling. Conditions here, well, they're pretty toasty, given the cool ambient conditions and relative cloud cover, 113 Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what you could cook on the track surface, but I guess we should try and find out.
I mean, it's fitting for the track. I think 113 degrees Fahrenheit fits in what the FDA calls the danger zone. So if you have meat in the danger zone of temperature for too long, it grows the bacteria and it makes everything disgusting. It is disgusting, but that's fitting for this track, because everywhere at VIR is the danger zone. Look at this. It's like you're in the middle of a farm. You're in the middle of a meadow here, and they just happen to put a strip of asphalt. This is, I compared it to Coda earlier for Sully Saad. No other driver is going to see that comparison, because there shouldn't be a track here. This should be a field, but there isn't, and that's what we love about it.
Can see that no one's really improving right now. They're all just setting up. As I say that, though, Matt Dinsmore improves to the top. Displaces Matt Arnold with a 1:46.022. It's, what, 400ths quicker than Matt Arnold.
Matt wins more. How about that?
Matt proves me wrong more.
It does.
That wasn't very good.
I mean, it was decent, but when have we ever seen that speed out of Matt Dinsmore? No offense to him, but that is an incredible lap from Matt Dinsmore. Would obviously be his first pole, but clearly those Throttle Thursday guys are doing something right, even in a fixed series. There's some team synergy there. 2 drivers in the top 10. We'll see if Karanjas can join him.
Well, Ewan O'Leary did tell me, who is competing today, RaceSpot's own, that he did not like how the BMW fixed setup handles. Matt Dinsmore's proving that it's pretty quick. Sully Saad has not improved that time by, did a 46.290, so about 2/10 off of his previous best. Has now got one final attempt with which to try and get back towards the front couple of rows. There's Baron Hilton again, another driver that's not going to see much improvement. These track conditions just clearly not that simple. Ray Dominguez, though, out of the final corner, will run to the line and be amongst the final drivers to be able to get one more lap in.
I mean, Matt Dinsmore did a similar jump from about 11th to pole in this BMW. Let's see if Dominguez can recreate it coming to the line.
Oh!
Yes, he can! How about that? The BMW coming alive at the end of these runs. I thought this wouldn't be the car you would want around here. I thought it was going to be a Porsche fest just like the rest of the season, but clearly Ray Dominguez and Matt Dinsmore know something we don't.
And we'll wait and see if anyone else can match that. Checkered flag flies, and so Waldo Walden will be the first to cross and see the qualifying session be complete. No improvement there. Handful more cars, including Matt Dinsmore, diving off towards the pit lane. That's Errol Urexoy, who is off the track through the final quarter, so he's not improving from 12th spot where he was, and now it's the likes of Jason Finch, potentially Sully Saad, that we will wait to see an improvement from. Not from Saad, he's off the track.
It's kind of an odd place to go off there, but you'll see, I think multiple drivers do that throughout the race, into the roller coaster, just taking too much speed there. Jeff Carollo still in the Audi, and Audi the track there over on the grass. You'd think normally it's a high-speed flat-out corner there, but sometimes you can just clip that curb too much, hop over, and understeer off into the grass. The Porsche of Roy Brown is going to stay out of the grass this time in that Italian Beef-sponsored car for Team Beef. Let's see what he can do to the line, improving on 146. by 1 singular tenth, but that's still pretty good. That'll not... It'll get him 2 spots.
He's up to 14th. Everyone else seems to be off towards the pit lane. Now, does Ray Dominguez have enough... He will get another lap. Can he put even more distance between him and the rest of the field? 45.8 was what he did last time at the line. Already on pole position. And he does improve. Nice. 600's better.
That's what we call dunking on the field there. Ray Dominguez not just happy with pole. He wants to let everybody know that I am the favorite to win this race now. 2 tenths over the rest of the field. That is as big as the gap between 2nd and 9th place. That is a huge margin. Poor Matt Dinsmore missing out in his first pole, but Ray Dominguez, what a lap.
And we've seen flashes from Ray. He's definitely got speed. The question is he going to be able to keep this up? Because it's his 2nd pole position of the season, but he's only converted that into 1 top 5 finish so far. And remember, you can drop one of your first few rounds. He may want to, if he wants to have a championship fight, drop one of the first 3 already.
He definitely will. Remember, he had a great 2nd place finish at Fuji, almost beat Aero Urexoy in week 2 to that victory. But right now, I couldn't even... Ray Dominguez does sit 5th in the championship. I was going to say I couldn't even see him, but he's just kind of in the anonymous zone. He definitely needs a win here.
His drop would currently be that last round, which by no means the worst drop, but Aero Urexoy has been in the top 5 in every single race of the championship so far. He's not winning as consistently as Gary Brown, but he's been consistently up towards the front, something you need to do to be able to win championships. Ready to go for the first of the double header here at the Virginia International Raceway. And the great thing is we get a full formation lap. Drivers getting stacked up behind the pace car. In the safety of pit lane, we got plenty of time to rumble through today's starting grid. And so it is going to be Ray Dominguez in that Racing Mate Scuderia BMW M4 GT3. 2nd pole position of the season and 2 tenths clear of Matt Dinsmore in that Throttle Thursday BMW. You got Matt Arnold, who's already tasted victory and not coping too badly with how his season has started to unfold. He's inside of Sully Saw with Jared Keane, one of the few drivers apparently with a home race here inside of John Jones, our week 1 winner. Andre Bernardi, Greg Doucette on row 4 with Jeff Carollo and then Steven Martinez behind them to round out the top 10. Pancari, Urexoy, 11th and 12th. The championship leader has some work to do from the outside of row number 6, while behind them Kulaga in the first of the Fords, Roy Brown alongside. Jason Finch, Reagan Chandler, Dale Peterson, and then Nicholas Carangis through your front 9 rows. Andrew Venaro and then Waldo Walden make up the rest of your top 20. Glenn Vanko, Michael Kulaga, Christopher Rines, and then Ryan Chandler, well losing out in the battle of the Chandlers. Got Buck Hamilton, Alan Dye sharing row number 13. Charles Sumner, of course, with that distinctive number 98, lines up inside of Dallas Sullivan. And then got Baron Hilton in that stealth black BMW alongside of Nicholas Herrera. 31st for Jack Stevenson, 32nd for Jason Bridges, while David Morse and then Steve Bummer, 33rd and 34th. It'll be Mark Bray and RaceSpot's own Ewan O'Leary that rolls back in 36th position. And he is going to be the last of the drivers because he decided he wanted none of the smoke and decided, I want no part of qualifying. Get me out of the danger zone. Look top to bottom at the grid. Drivers haven't even started to roll their way around the full formation lap, and so as they begin to do so, we take the time to jump on board. We've got Brett Pancari, who is getting ready. Ignore Vincent Trepanier, as well as Carl Modoff, top right and then bottom left, who are getting ready for the Sprint Series race. You can see the Chandlers, Ryan Reagan, right, middle, and bottom. And then, of course, Ray Dominguez, who has decided to steal a page out of the Ted Lowendick playbook.
Yeah, he's left the Safari Porsche 911, and he's just in his own room now, which, you know, I guess good enough for him. He wants to show off the rig. He wants to show off his PC that's precariously placed on a glass table that you would have on your patio. I hope that doesn't break. It's also asking, what is this track? I think that's Mr. Bean. That's it's a very obvious question to ask. What is this track? I don't think anybody's ever figured that out, but hopefully with the power of maybe the most interesting team name in the PRL, Racing Mate Scuderia, he'll have some good luck and he'll learn it in no time.
I feel like if you can't have Scuderia and then a non-Italian manufacturer. Just saying.
Well, what's team in German?
I know this. I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Meisterschaft.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. Well, actually, no. I think that just means masters, because that's what the M is in DTM.
German team. Oh, wait.
Mannschaft? Google tells me.
Team apparently is also valid. So
that makes sense.
This is a problem. Yes, no. But you know what motorsport is in German?
Motorsport.
No.
Motorwagen. Rennsport. That makes sense.
Yes. Yes, it's I did learn that. I made sure I learned that. Anyway, still plenty of time to go before we're actually racing. We're heading down into where no longer there lives a tree. R.I.P. It will live on in our heart. However, this turn remains as difficult as ever because you got to slow some of that momentum initially, bleed the rest of it off as you funnel in through what is maybe one of the most important corners on the track. A long run up in towards the next braking zone.
It's kind of like a funky version of turn 6 and 7 at Road Atlanta. You take high speed into the first part of that corner, carry as much speed as you possibly can to the exit, try not to clip the grass, and then it's a tight 90-degree corner onto the back straight, similar to Moss Corner and Mosport as well. It's one of the most difficult genres of corners you can find in the world. And I have a feeling on lap 1, you're going to see at least one driver somewhere in the pack. They're going to be taking a little bite out of that grass. They're going to be going a little bit wide, and they're going to lose a bunch of positions on this longest straight on the track. But that's just VIR. It bites. It's hard. That's what everybody enjoys about it. That's what some people aren't going to enjoy about it. And that's what makes it VIR.
It's going to be interesting as well for those with less experience, how they fare out. I was chatting with Ewan before before we went live, and I was just telling him, stay out of trouble and you might have a good chance at a top 20. I think Jason Bridges and Mark Bray are not going to start this race. They may have decided that pit lane is even safer for them. But for 34 GT3 machines getting stacked up and ready to go here at America's Motorsport Resort, we'll peel the pace car off onto driver's right and field for the second time in 4 races. Left in the control of Ray Dominguez in his BMW M4 GT3. 35 minutes on the clock, green flag in hand, and already drama. Dallas Sullivan's off the track. David Morse gets tangled up as well. A long hold, and finally Dominguez gets us underway. I'm sure I saw a bunch of contact and some resulting contact. Now at the front of the field, Andre Bernardi's gonna cannon into Matt Arnold. Major drama. Dominguez steers clear of it. But what just happened to start this race off?
I think we may have a golden bowling ball already. That was insane. Matt Arnold does make it through eventually. He recovers in 5th, but Andre Bernardi, I think, got hit or got tagged by somebody coming into turn 1 and could not get it slowed down on the grass, which you can't. It's very slippery. And a lot of drivers very lucky to avoid that bowling ball. A lot of drivers not so lucky. I can't even begin to start on what happened further back in the pack. I couldn't tell you.
Up through the S's, Bernardi the only one that seems to be heading back to pit lane on the flatbed. Surely not going to go side by side up through there. And I think that was Andrew Venaro that said no thank you in this Ferrari. Heading up through the final in towards the final sector. Hard on the brakes. Back straight away where the draft's going to be so crucial. Dominguez has been unable to break away. Jared Keen's had a great start. He's up 3 positions. Jeff Carollo +6. Pancari +7. And now we're putting the pressure on the race leader.
And you know, one driver who was involved on that turn 1 incident, Matt Dinsmore from the front row, his best qualifying ever. He's back to the back of the pack, but up front, drivers trying to argue here. Jared Keen, it's his home race. He's from Cary, North Carolina, but this is the closest road course to him, he says. So he's looking for a great result here at his home race. He's got a great deal of luck there with the skies kind of opening in front of him. And if you want to pounce with the guy who beat the field by 2/10 in qualifying, you got to do it early here. We'll see if he can make the move down the front straight.
End of lap 1, Dominguez, Keen, Carollo, Pancari, and Arnold starting to stretch the legs, the gap between 2nd and 3rd. Don't think Pancari's going to be close enough to have a look inside, but Reagan Chandler trying to get up the inside of Nicholas Coran, just going to be unable to do so. Difficult track to pass at, that is for sure. And it's why staying out of trouble on the starts, as yeah, they did not do such a great job back here, was going to be so important. I do really want to figure out, though, just keep watching up And we'll switch our attention up towards the front. What happens with Andre Bernardi is he goes 3 wide momentarily. And
Jared Keane
slightly turns himself on the front of Jared Keane, and nothing Matt Dinsmore could really do there.
And then Jared Keane kind of reaps the rewards of what happened there. We'll have to take another look at what happened there to see who really was at fault there. Conveniently, we do have a helicopter following the field to turn 1. Bernardi goes for a little bit of a blink and then absolutely comes over across Jared Keane's nose. Nothing Jared Keane did wrong there. Bernardi tries to get on the brakes, but when you're on the brakes in the grass, you can only slow down so much. And poor old Matt Dinsmore, it's such a shame. At least he's still rolling, at the very least.
He is at least, but I'm sure with plenty of damage, and minus 31 positions, heartbreaking, and now has got to ride around for 30 minutes thinking about what could have been. Still 1.2 between second and third, but Dominguez continues to be relatively calm under the fire of Keane, who, like Joey quite correctly points out, reaps the rewards from his own turfing at the opening corner. Not necessarily his fault, but involved in the incident, able to stay out of trouble. NASCAR has that rule that if you get involved in an incident, you do get the lucky dog. There's a handful of series that have stuff like that. Here's Pancari, though, dropping down through the field, made a mistake through the final corner. Momentum gets lost, so easy, just slot on back.
Might lose another one here. Sully Saad to the inside in turn 1. Pancari just trying to recover. Eventually he is able to slot back in front of Sully Saad, but just get that little bit wide out of the final corner, especially in a big lumbering BMW like this. And that makes it so easy to make a move. There he is, just a little bit wide, little bit of a clip of the grass, just a lift out of the throttle. Arnold gets by, Doucette gets by, Saad almost gets by. Nicholas Herrera's in trouble in turn 1, and I see some other drivers with him.
Yeah, that's Baron Hilton, I do believe. Ewan O'Leary in that bright red BMW got a piece of, I don't think the action, but the aftermath. And we'll have to go back and spool up what happened there. Matt Dinsmore might have some company sooner rather than later if they continue squabbling back in the pack. Here's a look at it, and it starts with Herrera into the opening corner. Oh, no! Ewan O'Leary!
Ewan O'Deary.
Ewan O'Turfy.
Something like that, but what a shame. Herrera, I think, a little bit early on the brakes, but nothing remarkably early there. Ewan a little bit later. I wouldn't say it's anything too bad for Ewan, just kind of a racing incident there, and then as the field comes through, everybody trying to get by, some slow cars, and arguing over the little bit of track that's left at VIR. It's very narrow, you can't go 3 wide. No,
you cannot. Starting to see a bit of a breakaway forming at the front, by the way. Oh, Vince Cusi jumps in. Ewan O'Repavey, that's his other name. The commentator that dared suggest on one occasion that maybe parts of Sebring could be repaved to prove that it has character through the bumps. That went over very, very well on RaceSpotTV. Hey, Dominguez, take a look on board, the look of focus and the look of calm that he's showing right now.
Indeed, and I just noticed, I looked very carefully, on his PC, that's not actually a real BMW sticker.
That's a green screen.
That's a Wait.
Look at his hand! That is a green screen!
I am so confused now, because has he green screened himself into his own room?
I don't think that's his room. I think he's green screened himself into someone else's room.
He's green screened why would you green screen yourself into that room, though?
I don't know!
I am so confused, because that's a very wide monitor.
What happened to the car? Yeah, what happened to the car?
It kind of looks like he has GIMP open on the edge there, but I have no idea what's going on here. I'm even more confused than I was when he was in the Safari car.
It definitely does not look like that is a triple screen running iRacing, and Jeff Carollo, it looks like on the timing screen, has tumbled down the... Oh, he's off the track. You can see him just about.
No, dear.
And there's a BMW pointed in the wrong direction.
Pancari.
And Christopher Rhines gets tangled up as well. 3 cars for the price of 1.
Yeah, why not? Might as well have a bunch of people pile in there. I have no idea what happened, because I think Pancari get a little bit wide down the hill, and then everything else just went a little bit crazy here. Here is the solution. That's Jeff Carollo in the Audi. He's the one that went a little bit wide, and Brett Pancari, the unlucky bystander there, was about an inch away from surviving that. Didn't get quite so lucky there. Carollo tried to keep it pointed straight, but the second he got back on the asphalt, the car pitched to the left a little bit, and he couldn't avoid Brett Pancari there. Let's see what happened to Rhines. Does exactly the same thing as Carollo, just slightly less violently, and everybody else gets luckier.
Yeah, just Big moment there, and you can see just how old school this track is, even though it's being repaved, and even in iRacing, repaved and rescanned. Track limits will bite, unlike where we go next week, Spa, where we're all talking about off tracks and how to ration them best. That's going to be a fun conversation this weekend in the iRacing 24 Hours of Spa. As ever, uninterrupted coverage here live on RaceSpotTV. Look at the pressure being piled on at the front, and yes, there is plenty of fighting further back, but at VIR, to watch two cars go this close for 10 minutes so far, 25 minutes still left to go, you can really tell how much they're putting on the line.
And normally the meta in this series, especially in the first stint before the pit stops come around, is just kind of hang on, ride behind the driver in front, save a little bit of fuel, and beat him in the pit stop. That's not happening, but Matt Arnold goes around at the Rip Oak Tree corner from third, was battling with Greg Doucette, and he's off the podium. The guy who won last week for the first time, he's behind his championship rival Aero Rexoy now, out of the top 10.
Hashtag Rip Oak Tree, by the way. That's a full and proper title. You can see damage. That's considerable damage on the left front as well. That could not have come from what we saw. So, once again, replay will tell us all. And we'll grab a look at it as they continue to battle up towards the front. So that's going to be Doucette that tries to challenge. And around the outside, trying to switch back. Oh, there's help. But where does the damage on the left front come from? That's where
I think that was from lap 1 when Andre Bonatti came through.
Oh, you're probably right, because you can't really see it from here.
There we go. Greg Doucette trying to go for a switchback, but just kind of misjudges the timing, basically, and runs into the back of Matt Arnold. Nothing more you can say there.
That's not a corner where you can switch back, in my opinion.
You can sometimes, but it's got to be a really big hop of the curb, and it's a bad day for Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't wrong when we told you and O'Leary just survive and you get a top 20, were we?
Yeah, and speaking of you and O'Leary, I just got a Discord message from him. He says, was not confident, was no good. Very simple.
I chose explicitly not to show the replay of how you and O'Leary is no longer in this race, but he is one of 4. Carollo, Pancari, and Bonatti to have retired. This is a look at John Jones all by himself into turn 1.
It's a Porsche moment. We've been seeing it happen all season at every type of track. And at turn 1, you can carry a lot of speed through there. Carried a little bit too much speed, though, and the tires are definitely heating up here. We are still in that danger zone, in the triple digits, as it seems like every PRL race is in terms of temperature. I can't imagine he's going to be the only driver to do that tonight, because there are a lot of corners at VIR. There's not much here that's actually a completely straight line. And if you want to cool tires down if they're overheating, you're going to have a very, very tough time of doing so.
I think the question is the track map correct in terms of corner numbers? Dominguez, small mistake, winding through what is technically turn 15, now through 16A, 16B, and 17, because that is worthy of being called a separate corner instead of 16C. Going to come to the end of lap number 6. They've got some separation behind, 3 seconds the margin to Greg Doucette. And Ray Dominguez, after that fantastic performance in qualifying, starting to show a little bit of strain under the pressure.
A little bit of strain under pressure, definitely, but it's still a great defensive drive, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do, which is not throw the car off the road. If he can avoid doing that, he's basically going to be in control of this race here. It's so difficult to pass here. You only really have a chance of making a 100% move into turn 1. Everywhere else is incredibly difficult to make a move, comes with incredible risk. So basically, as long as Ray Dominguez gets a great exit out of the final corner, he's going to be in pretty solid shape. But Jared Keen's been very, very close through the middle sector, which is going to be infuriating for him because he gets so close within tenths, but there's Nicholas Caranges. It's all falling apart for Throttle Thursday.
Yep. Oh, watch the rejoin there. Slots in behind Buck Hamilton. And now John Jones has got a, stricken BMW initially in a very precarious and awkward place. It's on that run up towards the S's. Not going to be able to get up alongside because his momentum was so checked up, but Caranges, not with much confidence after the spin, pushes Jones 2 wheels off the track. There's more drama. There's a car that's just spun in front of them. It's Glenn Vanko that's had more issues. Craziness at VIR, I tell you.
Caranges says, thank you very much. I'll take that, Glenn Vanko. Make my pain a little bit soothed. But what did I say? It's VIR. No margin for error. Going off track is punished. It's going to be punished next week at Spa too, but just in a different way. you're not going to get disqualified here for going off track. You're just going to go to the back of the field, and it's kind of self-punishing in a way.
In a way, but I do prefer the old-school nature of this track, I will just say. Here's what happened to Karan just then, and it's behind the Team Beef car, and he's just on that switch of momentum, trying to pivot and carry as much speed as possible. And then this rejoin, maybe not as bad as I thought it was initially. What happened to Glenn Vanko in another one of the Team Beef then Porsches as he makes his climb up towards the S's, as side by side almost for a moment you can tell that Jared Keen's starting to get impatient.
He's getting keen down there in the bottom right, but on the top left here, this is Glenn Vanko. Oh, clips that's a weird place to clip the curb, but then goes on a huge Virginia drift there. Well done, Glenn Vanko, for keeping that saved, but in trying to get as far to the right as possible to make turn 10 a little bit easier. I'm missing my numbers as well, but you just got a little bit too aggressive.
They are made-up numbers here at VIR, and that is the point. You saw that Keen got a little bit out of the line there up through the S's section, and that was more, I think, just to get out of some dirty air, get some rotation on the nose of the car.
Big run.
Glenn Vanko, by the way, has headed back to pit lane, so whatever happened to his car, not feeling too confident about it. Momentum, though, on the side of that Porsche, and it's a tricky braking zone to dive late alongside. Is Dominguez going to leave a little bit of room and back out of it early? No, he's just going to make sure that it's going to be a long trip around the outside for Jared Keen, who, with the couple of cars that are closing from behind, doesn't feel like he wants to battle just yet. Fuel mileage, obviously, front of mind.
Well, very interestingly, it doesn't seem like the Porsche actually has the straight line speed advantage, because that was a great run out of turn 12 for Jared Keen. Was within 0.2, and then as the straight went on, Dominguez pulled and pulled and pulled, even with the draft, and the gap just kind of expanded, eventually getting down to turn 14. So I don't necessarily know if the Porsche's the car you want to have in a straight line there. And if he can't make the move in a straight line, he's going to be in very, very big danger. He's going to find somebody else to make the move, somewhere else.
He's had a couple of close opportunities in through this opening sector, just not being close enough to really have a lunge. You can see within half a car length exiting the first sector. So it's through the twistier stuff where the Porsche definitely seems to have a little bit more speed. We're looking at Nicholas Caranges, who's gone off the road at the hashtag RIP Oak Tree corner. And has he slid back into the path of oncoming traffic? No, he's done a good job there.
Yeah, I think he throttles up a little bit later to get out of traffic, and that car is very, very heavily damaged, and at that point he's just trying to get out of the sea of grass there. He's trying to find land, and he can't find it. It's like when you're in the middle of the deep ocean, you don't know where you are anymore. Directions do nothing. Find the North Star, Nicholas. That'll get you out of there.
There you go. It was a crabbing, moonwalking BMW as well, so yeah, that's not a great thing. In towards that section they will go once again. 20 minutes left to go means that we're probably only, 10 minutes away from the end of the pit stop window, let alone the start, as there's a Team B Porsche that's taking the wrong pit lane, as another one goes side by side with Matt Arnold on the Charger, looking on forward, still with the damage to the left front, and that's going to mean that Roy Brown holds on to 9.
Very smart from Matt Arnold there to back out of that. You don't want to go side by side into the roller coaster there. That's the most dangerous thing you can possibly do around this track. Basically guaranteed to make two-car contact there and end up off the track. So very smart playing from both of the pink cars there. And they will live another day to continue that battle. So further up front, Keen's completely lost Ray Dominguez, actually. I don't know if he made a mistake out of the final corner, but it's a full second now. The gap is ballooned from one singular bad lap from Jared Keen. Yeah,
it's not ideal, that is for sure, but all it takes is one mistake to be back into contention. The problem will be that the reduced draft that these drivers are really getting to play with in this latest edition of the GT3 car does mean that it is probably difficult for them to really make much happen. And so they've got to find other ways, other methods of finding speed, and therefore pit stop strategy just becomes that even more important. 1.2 odd seconds it will climb to into the braking zone of what I technically think is called turn 11 and 12, so at least they've numbered that correctly. But the less we talk about corner numbers here, probably the best for everybody's brain.
Technically, they're 11 and 12, but there's so many S's in that middle sector of the track. How many S's are there? Is it turn 5 and 5A and 6 and 6A? I don't know. It's an American track, basically. If you want to count corner numbers in a North American track, or specifically an American track, you might as well not bother. They're inventing numbers, they're putting symbols in there, there's trigonometry, it makes no sense.
So under a second in through that final corner, it will close. You can see it just grows as they stretch their legs once again. Behind Doucette and Saad have not really closed much in the last 3 laps or so. Last time by, Doucette was 200ths quicker than Dominguez, and so we'll be hoping to try and look forward. There's our championship leader, iRacing, who, by virtue of all the misfortune that others have had, has been relatively quietly able to gain 5 spots so far. He's not the only one to have done so. Kulaga's +7, Finch +7 as well. Ryan Chandler +12, leading, of course, that battle of the Chandlers.
And both Chandlers from Virginia, so it's a home race for both of them. Ryan having a little bit better luck here, having a great race right behind Dale Peterson, right behind the Arnold and Brown battle as well, and they've been side by side multiple times, so this could very easily become a 4-car battle here. And what better place to get top 10 than your home race for Chandler? That would make him very, very happy, and we'll see some expression out of that face that we don't normally see when he's all focused.
I mean, it is the classic sim racer look. Classic esports look in many ways. I've been watching a little bit of other esports, just trying to get a sense for, general production and stuff. I'm curious about other esports, so it's always interesting how focused they look until one thing that sim racers don't do, I think that they do in other esports, is that release of the emotion that maybe we don't get as much of just because it's all done at home rather than in person, where you get the teammates alongside, you get the crowd egging you on as well, all those little things. Under 6:10s once again, the margin for the lead, because they have had to deal with some traffic. Fortunately, one of the SOT Porsches is going to head off towards pit lane. David Morse gets out of the way of your leaders, but sniff of the draft given back to Jared Keane. 11 laps now complete, excuse me. A couple more cars deciding it's time to go to pit lane.
Indeed, I don't know what kind of esports comparison I could make here. Are these guys going off to the sidelines in Rocket League? Is that a thing that happens? Are there timeouts? They're in an Overwatch lobby. You know how much I know about other video games that aren't iRacing. I couldn't tell you anything, but about half the field is coming down pit lane here. Arnold, iRacing. We're going to reach the end of the fuel limit here, about 20 minutes into this race. And iRacing is going to come out in clean air, I believe. He's found a pocket on track. And that could be very good for him to maybe even jump Finch and Kulaga into the top 5.
Whoa, you have some other ideas, clearly, for chasing.
I was just saying it the Spanish way, don't worry.
Gotcha. Nicholas Herrera, by the way, has just had a difficult day. He's been off the track a couple more times today, and down in 27th position. So iRacing in front of Dinsmore, who has not come down pit lane. Only Michael Kulaga really for the championship leader to have in terms of quote-unquote traffic, but we'll see how much struggles Kulaga's really going to give, given that he started back in 22nd and did a 149 last time by, almost 2 seconds exactly slower than our leaders. So expect this to be relatively trivial, but traffic never seems to play out that way. Jared Keene's going to go as long as possible. Do you think Ray Dominguez comes in this lap?
I have to imagine so. I can't say guaranteed, because we always find drivers who are able to go that one extra lap. He's not going to do it, but Keane is.
Whoa.
Jared Keane on pit lane, gets it slowed down. It's a pretty straightforward pit lane entry, but sometimes those are the toughest ones, because it is just a battle of the late breakers, trying to get slowed down as late as possible. Looks like everybody does. Back to Jason Finch, Roy Brown's in as well, Dale Peterson. And basically only Ray Dominguez has been able to go that extra lap again. He did that last week, too.
Incredible. So maybe that BMW is pretty good on fuel as well. We'll see who wins the race off of the lane for those behind. Dominguez not going to have traffic, most importantly, to filter into. There we go, off and away. Keene's going to get out in front of Greg Doucette, but definitely with a margin that has closed. Sully Saad in the mix as well. Don't necessarily think you can say the same, actually, for the 79 Porsche. A little mistake from Keane on tyres that have cooled off slightly. Doucette immediately tries to take advantage up the inside and into the net lead of the race as we wait for Dominguez to make his trip to the lane.
Well, I don't think it's quite going to be the net lead of the race, because even just going side by side for a moment there with one mistake from Jared Keane, that is going to make Ray Dominguez very, very happy, because pit delta at its longest here has only been about 35.5 seconds, and that's including rolling speed. If Ray Dominguez can make it onto pit lane with no issues, have a completely normal stop, I think he's basically going to be in the lead of this race by a couple seconds here, very comfortably.
Don't forget the overspeed that the drivers will have after exiting out of the final corner. It's just going to get them a little bit closer, and maybe even close enough to make a send. And we've already seen Jared Keane a little bit slippery on pit exit for these drivers. Do have to keep that in mind. Good final exit into the final sector, and on the back straightaway, Keane once again in the draft, and maybe not a bad thing that you've got Doucette in front, because of course we do know that Porsche seems to struggle a little bit in a straight line as Dominguez makes his way to the lane.
Doucette's really hoping that he can be the BMW spoiler of this party. He wasn't actually that far back from the lead battle a little bit earlier. It's about 2.5 seconds back, I think, by the time Jared Keane came in. So he is certainly in the conversation for this win, but with that one extra lap on track, Dominguez can have a shorter pit stop than anybody else here. It was 12.8 seconds for Greg Doucette, 11.7 for Ray Dominguez. It was already looking like a big lead, and as he comes out of the pits, it's going to be about 3 seconds over Greg Doucette. Incredibly comfortable.
It's not even close on the run in towards turn number 1. Dominguez well and truly clear at the front. Sully Saad's actually closer to second and third than Dominguez is to those trying to chase him down. That's what the advantage of going long in fuel can be. Dominguez has clearly got something figured out in fuel consumption.
And Jared Keane is going to be ruining that mistake. He's got a little bit too aggressive coming out of the pits. It's a difficult thing to do to brake for turn 1 coming out of the pits, because you're entering the corner at a completely different speed from what you're used to. You think you can take a little bit more, get a little bit more aggressive because you are at that lower speed, but that's when you get a little bit too greedy, be a little bit too late in the brakes, and that's when this race fell apart for Jared Keane. He might not have come out in the lead even if he didn't make that mistake, but he would be quite a bit closer to Ray Dominguez. And now he's fighting for second, unless there's a big mistake out of Dominguez or if he's underfueled at all.
How the track conditions are cooling down slightly as well. Yeah, heading off into the afternoon/evening here, 15th of July, so relatively long days you'd assume, but just that cloud cover, a dip below 100 Fahrenheit, so that's a not insignificant drop as well. I think that was Alan Dice. Excuse me, no, that was another driver that went a little bit wide onto the back straightaway. Alan Dice is off at the first sector. We've had 34 starters, but through all of the madness, only 5 retirements. Not bad.
It's not been great luck for these NASCAR Truck Series drivers who have moved over into this series. Dice getting into trouble now. We saw his teammate Dallas Sullivan, I think, in trouble a little bit earlier.
Oh, Urexoy!
Oh, Urexoy!
Off the road, and that's at the final corner. He's able to bring it back onto track, but fortunately Roy Brown jinks to the outside, gets on clear. Urexoy drops to the edge of the top 10.
When we saw Urexoy earlier in 7th, I was about to say this is the drive of a champion, just avoiding mistakes, making up spots, and coming out with a great result even if he can't win the race. But that was a moment of humanity for Urexoy. Basically does what Glenn Vanko did earlier at a different corner, tries to get too aggressive to the right to set up the next corner, clips the curb, and fires it off the track and comes right back on the track. Not necessarily on the racing line, but a little bit dicey there into the final corner.
Quick hands, all things considered, to be able to hold on to that. And then, as he got some grip onto the car, a good reaction from both Roy Brown and Matt Arnold to stay out of trouble there. But staying out of trouble, so important, especially when you're slightly blindsided as the second car in the queue. Now, Dominguez has seen the gap shrink to 2.6 seconds winding out of the final corner. Doucette in second has the benefit of having the same setup as Dominguez. It's all now just about what they do with it.
Doucette coming down the hill here. He looks very, very comfortable. We haven't seen him get slidey. We haven't seen him make many mistakes. And he has been closing the gap down just a little bit. Not by leaps and bounds, but tenths, half-tenths per lap. That's good for him. It also tells you that Dominguez is probably pretty comfortable out front. He's backing off just a little bit to keep control of the race. And I think Doucette would really need to be taking out huge chunks of lap time here. Half a second, 0.4 of a second per lap if he really wanted to be in the conversation for victory. All he can do now is hold off Keen for second place and really hope that Dominguez finally makes that mistake.
We've already seen plenty, so I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's not improbable. Ryan Chandler was running as the best of the Chandlers, but a mistake of his own through the final corner. He'll drop to 15, still +9 on the day, so net gain. Matt Arnold up the inside of Roy Brown, very politely takes 8th position away from the 133. Can Urexoy follow through? He's going to have to wait a couple more corners.
You can tell Arrow's going to get aggressive here. He can't get too aggressive because with going off track, with I think starting at the back, maybe making some. Actually, I don't think he did make contact on lap 1, but he's definitely going to be building up those incident points, and those 4 X's with car contact, they really start to add up. We've seen drivers get disqualified in the F3 series a lot over the past couple weeks. You only get 13 incident points in this series before you have to serve a drive-through, 17 when you get disqualified. Especially in close quarters like this, after you've had a couple offs, you have to be careful to keep within the limits of the rules.
Trying to figure out where the rest of the traffic is going to be as they head onto the throttle as hard as they can, run down onto the back straightaway. For Dominguez, there's so much clean air in front of him. The next car up the queue is Steve Bammer, who is just crossing the line. And so I think that means with 4 laps to go, we should not have any traffic for our leader to contend with.
But as he crosses the line here, you see that lap time. All you ticker watchers, you can see it came down 0.4 there. That's what I said Doucette needed to do, and that's what he's doing. Is that a sign of Dominguez backing off like I mentioned, or is that a sign of maybe Dominguez being a little bit aggressive with the fuel again and having to lift off just that little bit actually to make it to the end of the race and saving that second in the pit stop?
Not a bad point, actually. We have seen even the best drivers be caught out with putting too little fuel in, especially given that maybe he was hitting a certain fuel number before, and the first few laps after your pit stop you think, oh, maybe I put enough fuel to get to the end. Not always necessarily the case, so maybe just managing the car itself. Don't think, no matter what he does in terms of speed, this time at the line, we are still looking at 3 laps to run, so even if Greg Doucette gets close, unless Dominguez is going to run out of fuel on the final lap, surely it's impossible to get on through with just 1 lap to pass.
Yeah, I think he's got a comfortable margin here, and that's basically what he needs. He needs that comfortable margin. He needs to be looking at his relative and kind of calculating in his head, if he is looking at that relative, that Doucette is closing a little bit, but he's not closing fast enough to worry about him. So just don't worry about the car behind. Keep running your race, and you'll be in complete control, and you'll probably have your first win here. But if he does start getting focused on that car behind, seeing, oh, he is closing me, is he going to catch me, is he going to pass me, that's when you start getting a little bit nervous, that's when you start making mistakes, and that's when you do end up losing the race. But this lap, he's stopped the hemorrhaging, he's stopped the lap time drop-off, and he's completely comfortable right now, I think. He doesn't look like a very nervous guy. If we look at his camera, I can't imagine that green screen's wobbling at all.
No, definitely not. Seems to be pretty relaxed with how things are running for the time being. Not really too many battles to talk of right now outside of the train of Arnold, Brown, and Urexoy. Haven't really swapped around after Urexoy's mistake. Have not seen him really try and sling anything up the inside. Ewan O'Leary joins Nicholas Carangis, Glenn Vanko, Jeff Corolla, Brett Pancari, and Andre Benatti, and being retired from this race. And so 34 started, 28 will finish, 27 of whom are on the lead lap if all holds as they will. And I don't even think we're necessarily going to see any sort of fight between Keen and Doucette up towards the front. Dinsmore's come down pit lane. Is he a victim of the incident limit?
I have a feeling that might be the case, because remember, he got contact on lap 1 from the Bonatti bowling ball. That was already a 4X. I think we saw him go off at another point, and this is just a drive-through, so poor old Matt Dinsmore, best qualifying ever in the series. Looked like he was going to be in conversation for the win, taken out completely out of his own accord. He could do absolutely nothing there, but hopefully he can take this confidence into the next couple of weeks that he does have the speed to fight up front here. He has definitely improved over the past couple of seasons. John Jones, not quite so lucky though.
Now that's a second incident for him, and it's going to drop him out of the top 15, but might not drop too much further, especially given that I think he's somehow been able to avoid any sort of damage on that car. Let's pick it up, see what happened to him. Runs himself a little bit wide, does a nice little pirouette, does indeed keep it out of the wall. Now, I've got a question. Did Baron Hilton get as lucky in the opening sector of the lap? As I think Sully's side is having to save some fuel. He's dropped down through the field. Baron Hilton watches his rejoin and doesn't cause any drama.
It's just making the VIR rallycross track over there. Nothing wrong with that. Just going a little bit wide, taking the Joker lap. But yeah, Baron Hilton, another one of those drivers coming in from the NASCAR Truck Series. He's been in the GT3 ranks for a couple more seasons, though, so he's definitely experienced in these cars, but just doing multiple things, and unfortunately, sometimes VIR does still bite, no matter how much experience you have here, no matter how much experience you have in the cars.
Spa's going to be a bit easier. Zolder's going to be, I think, similarly, maybe not as difficult as VIR, but definitely one that the drivers will not necessarily be as practiced with compared to where we go in a week's time. Looking forward to seeing if any of the Precision Racing esports drivers are out in GT3 machines, and of course plenty of these drivers might use this event as a bit of practice to head into a twice around the clock trip into the Ardennes. It's 2 seconds at the front. Thought there was going to be no traffic, but Ray Dominguez has stumbled onto the back of Jack Stevenson, who's been involved a couple more dramas at the end of the race. You'll see the white flag, and in the rearview mirror, Greg Doucette starting to close.
Stevenson, I think he's thinking about pulling over to the right, and yes, he does indeed. Very courteous, as all the Team Beef drivers always are. Backs off the racing line, lets Ray Dominguez through. No harm, no foul whatsoever there, and that's going to be basically the last hurdle for Dominguez. One more lap around VIR, and he's got his first win in the PRL after fighting so hard in those first couple of races this season. All he's got to do is do what he did in qualifying. He's done it many, many times before, but sometimes that first win pressure is the ultimate pressure. And we've certainly seen many, many bobbles on the final lap from drivers that seemed impenetrable before.
Sully side is trying to get back up in front of Jason Finch, but switch back for that blue machine. Able to get back through. I think the thing to remember is if you've been able to be this composed through the first 35 plus minutes of the race, given that the clock is now ticked over past zero. Just got to keep doing what you're doing. You can't change what you're doing because you're in the lead, which is, you know, a lot of the time what people tend to do. We'll also have Steve Bammer in the Ferrari to maybe swoop on through. It's down the back straightaway for the final time. Margin, though, is closed to 1.5 seconds. If Doucette had a couple more laps, it'll be an interesting run to the end.
I think if Greg Doucette cut turn 14, he would definitely have a shot at the win as well, but I think he's going to be very happy with second place either way. And Ray Dominguez for Racing Mate Scuderia, not really fighting for the team's championship because it is a single car team, but that's going to be a little bit of a spoiler for the likes of Ultra Motorsports, who are looking for big points today. They're not going to get them. Greg Doucette's going to get those big points for Throttle Thursday.
But it is always great to see a first-time winner. It will throw some chaos into the team championship as well, but we'll get to see a smile on the face of Ray Dominguez, a winner in the Precision Racing League GT3 Fix Series, and the first of many. Doucette second, Jared Keane third in his home race, with Jason Finch just finishing behind Eric Hulaga, the blue oval being able to rise up 9 positions. Oh, it's lovely to see a smile.
You were saying you wanted more emotions, and you got it.
I'm not complaining. Love it.
Yeah, maybe Ray Dominguez is, maybe he's got a background in some of those other esports, because he is bringing the hype here and that's going to be big for his confidence. He's fought for a win before this season, couldn't quite do it, but now he's got that first win on the board. We've seen drivers really build confidence after that first win, the likes of Gary Brown, who dominated this championship a season ago. Who knows what Ray Dominguez could do from now on.
And sometimes I feel as well, once you click with what the setup makers are doing with these fixed setups, it becomes that much easier to get consistent speed out of it. And so if we're going to continue to see Dominguez up towards the front in qualifying, if he's going to be consistently fighting in and amongst those at the front, we should expect him maybe not too far away from being a part of that championship mix. Still have Nicholas Herrera to come to the line to finish things up. 35-minute race for this one. Don't forget that the next race on deck, 40 minutes in length. If Greg Doucette had those 5 extra minutes, I think he'd be arguing that he had a chance of being able to fight for the win, but it wasn't to be. Instead, it's Ray Dominguez that walks away with the biggest smile on his face, and we will take a look at the race results in just a few moments' time. Always great, like I said, to have first-time race winners, and what an interesting team name as well that maybe we'll get to talk to him about. Ray Dominguez first, and Greg Doucette second, breaking up the storm and swarm of Porsches. Jared Keane third, the best of those Porsches in his home race. Eric Kulaga fourth, 9 positions gained in front of Jason Finch, 10 positions gained. Sully Saad dropped to 6th in front of Steven Martinez, Matt Arnold, Roy Brown, and Errol Urexoy. Handful of drivers there, all having to fight their way back and doing a pretty decent job of doing so. Dale Peterson, Andrew Venaro, Buck Hamilton, Ryan Chandler winning in the Battle of the Chandlers, and then Waldo Walden make up your top 15. John Jones, couple of spins, our race 1 winners down in 16th today with Christopher Rines, Charles Sumner, Dallas Sullivan, and then Michael Kulaga through the top 20. Reagan Chandler 21st, Matt Dinsmore, Baron Hilton, Alan Dice, and then Nicholas Herrera all scored on the leading lap. 1 lap down for the likes of Steve Bammer, Jack Stevenson, and then David Morse, while RaceSpot's own Ewan O'Leary, 7 laps down, but not last. Nicholas Carangis completes the top 30. With Glenn Vanko, Jeff Carollo, Brett Pancari, Andre Bernardi, Jason Bridges, and Mark Bray through the rest of the field. So many drivers going to be slightly disappointed after this race started with plenty of drama. And so it means that we can get ready to talk to a couple of the drivers in our post-race coverage. And of course, it's going to be a delighted Ray Dominguez that stands by with our own Joey Tebben.
A delighted Ray Dominguez indeed. Well, yeah, hey, indeed, Ray. After getting so close a couple of weeks ago at Fuji, you finally got that first win. What clicked so well in this BMW at VIR? 2/10 over the field in qualifying, dominating the race. What went so well for you?
You know, what went well is that when you know the track, you don't practice at all. Like, you just practice one day before and you're ready for the race. But coming to this track without knowing it at all, like ever been here before, I practiced the last week straight every single day. That's how it happened.
Well, Ray, hopefully it's the first of many. Congrats on that first win. We love seeing that emotion across the line, and we'll see if you can go 2 for 2 at Spa next week.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you can bet on that.
Oh, we can bet on that. Ray Dominguez confident coming into Spa, Arjuna. Let's see how confident our second place finisher is. Also in a BMW, fittingly enough, Greg Doucette comes home. Great result for you today as well, Greg. What more did you need to catch that fellow BMW, Ray Dominguez?
I could see him up ahead, and it was tough. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think that he may have had less fuel at the pit strategy, and it was fun, though, nonetheless. I could see him, that I was able to keep the race pace, and there just wasn't enough in it at the end of the day. But, I mean, it's been a couple good weeks of finishing for Throttle Thursday, so team's doing great. Second interview in a row this week, so let's keep a habit of this going.
Not too bad. It seemed like the Porsche was the car to have in both series at the start of the season, but the BMW did very well here. Is that track specific, or can that keep up for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think that there's it's hard for the Porsches to catch on the straights. They don't seem to be able to. The draft's not very effective, so yeah, it allows you, once you hit the straights, if you get a good exit, you could just not watch the mirrors and just head down and go. So yeah.
Well, Greg, congrats on second. Maybe it'll be a third interview in the row next week at Spa. Greg Doucette. Indeed. Second place, Arjuna. Great day for BMW. 1-2 See if they can keep it up at Spa next week, and that'll bode very well for some of our 24 hours of Spa drivers as well if the BMWs can keep up that speed.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be quite curious to see that, especially for these drivers who go from the fixed setup to an open setup series, what they're going to do and how much they're going to enjoy that 24-hour race. Of course, that's this coming weekend. These drivers come back to the Ardennes after they're all done. July 25th, our coverage begins as ever, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, with the fixed series before we dive into the slightly longer race of the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. Of course, we touched on the schedule slightly earlier, Joey, and talked about how after Spa, you think they're going to go to sleep at Zolder before Road Atlanta, Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, Circuit de la South, and then Phillip Island round things off. That's 5 races in August. That's going to be pretty frenetic.
It is going to be frenetic, and they're going to be wishing it was a calm, peaceful sleep at Zolder, but it's more of a nightmare. It's not going to be a pleasant sleep. You're going to be tossing and turning. Nothing's going to feel right, but they're going to have to suffer through it either way, and it's going to be a great challenge. So maybe that'll be another place where Ray Dominguez rises to the top. Then Road Atlanta, that's a similar place to Watkins Glen. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows how to get around there, and it's an old-school style track like VIR as well, where there's very little margin for error. Barcelona, grade 1 track, even if it is the historic layout, going to be tough to pass. Le Mans, insane, always, very difficult track, very long lap, and then I am very happy to see Phillip Island at the end of the season. It's not a track that gets a lot of love on iRacing anymore, unless you're racing the V8 supercars, which nobody ever is, so I'm glad to see it on the calendar.
And, of course, let's not forget that Joey says it's the Circuit de Barcelona historic, but it's more close to what they run now in the real world, albeit with a slight change in the end of the middle sector, just before you head off into where we now have the faster double right-handers instead of that awful chicane that should be removed from all the history books and never brought back into vogue. But we're ready to make our way back to America's motorsports resort. The Virginia International Raceway's treated us well for one 35-minute race. We add 5 minutes, we throw open setups into the mix, and we tell the drivers, let's see what you can really do to make your cars go as fast as possible. It's the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series. It's where drivers that have developed their racecraft a little go to battle at a slightly higher level. Slightly similar schedule with which we're going to follow, of course, in this season. In fact, it is an identical set schedule to the Precision Racing League GT3 fixed series, and so that means what we've seen is what we've talked about, rather, is what we'll talk about with these drivers as well, Joey. And so we can quite quickly skip over the schedule and instead talk about the championship standings. And boy, is this a championship that will ever throw some unknowns up. Last season was all about the ones that were able to be consistent, but not consistently winning. Abner Acosta, our defending champion, didn't win until the penultimate round of the championship. Vincent Trepanier, our championship leader, with 1 win. Boris Ovando, 3rd place with 1 win. Go back to 6th position. Dominic Olivier in 5th position. He's also got a win. Winning is going to be so important with what is a stacked field, potentially the strongest this series has ever been.
Potentially, or maybe indeed the strongest field we've ever had, because I haven't done any math, but I imagine if we added up all of the wins of every driver in this field, it would probably be in the triple digits. It would probably be over 100, and it's just been phenomenal to see. Nobody has been able to run away with this, and nobody has really put their stamp on the championship yet, but you have to say Vincent Trepanier is probably the favorite. Everybody else underneath him is going to be making sure that isn't the case. They want to stop his run after he finally won for the first time this season last week, and they don't want him to get that 4th championship.
Once you get on a roll as well, it becomes so easy. Gary Brown learned that last season in the GT3 Fixed Series, makes his way into the Sprint Series, been enjoying seeing how he's been transitioning as well. When it comes to top 5s as well, I'll just point out that inside of the top 5, all the drivers have been in the top 5 on 2 occasions. That's not something that no one else has been able to do. It's why we're going to talk about being at the front so consistently. Vincent Trepanier, 2 pole positions, 2 fastest laps, going to be very tough to beat. He leads the way as well for Advanced Motorsports in the team standings, where it is just 3 points back to Precision Racing Esports Purple. Michael Diaz, Boris Ovando, they're 2nd and 3rd. Abner Acosta's in the mix as well for them, but he's back in 10th position in the championship. I think the story still after 3 rounds is the fact that SimCity Racing, who showed up in numbers and strength, only find themselves 3rd and 8th in this team championship.
It's kind of shocking because they've built the ultimate super team. It's the usual or the usual SimCity Racing suspects, rather. Martin Crisp, Sean Dickinson, a few others. And they've added Arnaud Genet, they've added Ryan Pucktel. It seemed like they would have a great season going here, but they've had some bad luck. Haven't quite had the absolute race-dominating speed that we saw from Sean Dickinson and Martin Crisp in previous seasons. But that could always change here. We know that Martin Crisp and Sean Dickinson are both usually good at these natural terrain road courses, these tight and twisty tracks. So maybe this could be the week where they start to claw at that 60-point gap and start to bring it down a little bit.
And slightly bigger field for these drivers than in that fixed series that we've already seen in it. So it means that you get 2 or 3 drivers, depending on how you work your lineups out. Only the best 2 score points. Being consistent when you just have 2 drivers, so much more difficult than we tend to talk about in the fixed series. But of course, you got to work with your teammates to make the most of the numbers that you have. Once again, the drivers are out there for an open qualifying session. 20 minutes get thrown onto the board, and drivers get to work in, well, I say draft, but more trying to stay out of trouble, I think is the way to put it. Dominic Olivier currently sits at the top, with Carl Modoff 2nd, Manuel Santos 3rd, Vincent Trepanier 4th, and then Beckham Jasir, your top 5. Got Simon Terrio, Scott Kimbrough, Michael Diaz, Gonzalo Cortez, and then Sean Dickinson a little bit further on behind. Qualifying here, we said it was important before the fixed series race, Joey, but it turns out if there's any sort of drama in the opening corners, less important is your qualifying and starting spot.
I really hope we don't get the bowling ball again to turn 1 this time, but anything can happen with those arguments into turn 1. It's very narrow. Everybody knows track position is important. It's kind of like Pocono, where you want to make those moves very, very early because you know it's going to be very difficult to pass later on. And that can lead to some big old trouble into turn 1. You can tell I've been driving a lot of Pocono over the last couple days.
Oh yeah, oh, is that where you're racing tomorrow in the Precision Racing League Xfinity Series?
That is indeed correct.
Nice.
And it's it's the track where people, oh no indeed, it's the track where people think, hey, you know what, this track is 8 lanes wide. That means we should go 8 wide into turn 1.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can't tell, I've commentated on that situation a few too many times myself.
The funnel.
So yeah, you've broken me with the memories. Anyway, where is the Truck Series there tomorrow night as well?
Of course, that's where the. I mean, that's where the trouble usually happens because those tend to stick together around Pocono, and the draft actually works.
Yes, because they're also slower, right? So they just stick together a little bit more naturally, less power, more downforce. So it all tends to work out. Like I was mentioning, it is close at the top, but it is now Dominic Olivier no longer at the very top. He's been pipped by Carl Modoff. Emmanuel Santos still 3rd, Vincent Trepanier 4th, with 90-ish seconds left to go in the session. It means time definitely winds down on laps for these drivers to be able to punch on in. Here is Carl Modoff, only 2 thousandths away from breaking into the 143s.
One of the stalwarts of the PRL here, the winningest driver in PRL GT3 history. Had a couple of seasons off. I think about 2 years off from the PRL, if I am counting correctly. But he is back for the past couple of seasons, and he is back to his winning ways here. Currently on top, slowing down a little bit here. Not necessarily at full speed. I think he's trying to set up for a pole position lap, so he's going to get one more time around here.
Clearly doesn't think that the lap that he has done is going to be good enough, and so we're going to jump on board with the 948 and ride for a lap. Oh, he's got the guns out, and let's see if he can impress us with what he's got. Remember, 144.002, the benchmark to beat, and it will be the final attempt in qualifying for Carl Modoff. Ready to go in towards turn number 1, fade to the left, brake just at that 2, and then down as deep as you can go, trying not to get into the ABS. Tuck it in nice and early and try and sweep onto the power to carry that momentum into what is the most treacherous corner. Not turn 2, but turn 3. Where is your reference? It's so deceptively tricky, both on braking, turn in, exit, the whole of it. Now though, you got to be so precise, so gentle as well with the throttle here as you feather the throttle through 5A, B, 6A, 6B, and now on that run up towards the S's where bravery gets rewarded.
Those first couple of S's are difficult enough with those large curves, and there's a whole nother challenge here. 1 curb, 2 curbs, 3 curbs, and then the final curb. That can turn the car around if you're a little bit too far to the right, then flick it in, but there he goes. Too much speed into turn 10. Trying to squeeze that orange for every bit of juice it has, and it is all out of juice. Karl Modoff's done, but he doesn't care. He's still on pole.
And look at how many drivers are off towards the pit lane, so I don't know if we're necessarily going to see too many improvements. Once again, at the closing stages of qualifying, look at those conditions, as toasty as it was for the GT3 Fix Series. Sean Dickinson currently on the outside of the top 10 and looking in 44.5. His previous benchmark, a full half a second off, gets within 2,000ths, but no improvement there. Kevin Simpson the next.
Yeah, pretty equal, pretty consistent. That's good for racing conditions, not quite so good for qualifying. Vincent Trepanier still out there, but he is well off the pace. This is not going to count for him. He's not going to be too disappointed with 4th place, I don't think, though. In the championship lead, fighting for the podium, he'll be happy. Martin Crisp has to avoid a wrecked car in the final corner there. Don't know who that was, but we'll see if that distracted Martin at all. Can he get up there with his teammate Sean Dickinson?
I think it might have been Miguel Angel Fonseca, and could that have been the difference? 1,000th off for poor Martin Crisp. Jeremy Gonzalez in one of our Precision Racing esports cars next to the line finds a good 0.2 of a second in a field as competitive as this. Gets him up into the top 10. Don't think his teammate behind who got the tow from him will see a similar improvement. And Ryan O'Connor may have got some damage on the left side of that Mercedes. And wiggling back and forth, I'm almost guaranteeing you this is not an improvement.
I don't know why he did that, because he would have improved on that lap time. He must have already had an incident point. Yeah, he must have already had an off track and knew he wasn't going to improve, but I would have still gone for the lap time.
But you like VIR. Oh, well. Yeah, I know what you mean. You just want that frame of reference, don't you?
Exactly. And Vincent Trepanier, did he cross the line before the checkered flag?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he's done.
Extra practice, I guess.
He's going to practice a pit entry. We haven't talked about that. It's not...
Go for the jump, Vincent, at turn 14, actually. Come on, full throttle, full throttle. Oh.
We're not at Mount Panorama.
He had a chance. He had a chance.
He's not going to get time to practice a pit entry either, because the clock's about to expire on him, and the drivers are going to get gridded up for, again, a full formation lap. It means that, once again, plenty of time for us to work through the grid of 43. That's going to head out there for the 40 minutes of racing action. Again, mandatory pit stop with the fuel limit that these drivers have to contend with. And already seen that Ray Dominguez able to stretch it out a little bit longer, able to make his pit stop that much shorter. What does that influence the drivers as they get ready to go, heading down to the starting grid? Karl Modoff gets ready to get us underway, just shy of a 143, but he's almost 800ths clear of Dominic Olivier in that Precision Racing Esports Black number 9. Emmanuel Santos in the AC7 E-Racing 114 is alongside Vincent Trepanier as we finally get out of the Stealth Black and into the white, purple and teal of Advanced Motorsports. Beckham Jasier brings fiercely forward up for the ride as well, but look at the swarm of Porsches. Simon Terrier rounds out the front 3 rows, all 992 generation cars. Even further back it continues. Boris Evando, Scott Kimbrough, Michael Diaz, Jeremy Gonzalez, and then Gonzalo Cortez, all in Porsches. Before 12th spot sees Sean Dickinson in the first of the Lamborghinis for Sim City Racing. Ryan Pucktel immediately then goes back to form in a Porsche alongside Alessandro Torchio, while Juan Malagon, Martin Crisp, and then Abner Acosta find themselves in front of the first of the BMWs, Michael Terrafino in that Team Beef BMW. Championship leader once again has some work to do, by the way, from 17th for Acosta. Artie Mercedes in a Porsche in 19th. Nicholas Johnson in a Mercedes in 20th. Fernando Yaquez 21st. Ted Lowendick in 22nd. The sole representative, I do believe, of Nick and Ted's excellent adventure today, as Nick McLaughlin watches on from a well-earned vacation. Arnaud Genet and then Noah Anderson 23rd and 24th. Still not yet 1 second off pole position as we cycle through Justin Delano and then Gary Brown, the defending GT3 Fix champion, but Nathan Bartley 1.1 seconds behind is 27th alongside with Josh Beers. Evan Smogor, Ethan Bass, 29th and 30th, with Kevin Simpson, Philip Magnon, Miguel Angel Fonseca, Ryan O'Connor, Matt Scherf, and then Joseph Carnes, all lining up through the front 18 rows. Still going, Jay Steffi, Nico Sanidakis, Alexander Breton, Keaton Marchesi, Faris Nasser, Marc-Andre Deschardins, and then last but not least, the only driver with no lap time on the board, it's Patrick Vogel, back in 43rd position. Field once again rolls their way out onto track for the full formation lap, and Joey Tebben, these drivers don't have to worry about a errant RaceSpotTV commentator in the opening laps of this race. However, what do they have to contend with?
Well, they have to worry about an errant RaceSpot interviewee, but he's in the middle of the field, so that's going to be even more danger, but we'll talk to him a little bit later. Just like with the last race, they're going to have to contend with the track itself. This might be a higher strength of field, these might be more experienced drivers in general, but everybody makes mistakes around VIR. You saw Karl Modov do that going 100% push on his final qualifying lap, and this track breaks for nobody, whether you're Modov, whether you're Trepanier, or whether you're anybody else at the back of the field. You can't lose focus around here. You can never lose focus. That's why I'm not good at this place, because you lose focus in the middle of the run, and suddenly you're about 10 states over in a field of grass.
I've got a soft spot for VIR. I raced in SCO GT race here back in 2018, 2019. Would have been that winter, I assume. I had some fun. Here's a look at the drivers as they roll out. Vincent Trepanier and Karl Modov have been sitting there for a while getting ready to go, but Gary Brown and Ted Lowendick join us, and I've got to say, we can't let this stand. Ted Lowendick, what happened to your background, or lack thereof?
I couldn't really come up with a good one for Virginia, so sorry.
You should have put a smoker behind you and be like smoking some Virginia ham, just fresh in the middle of the house. Violate the codes of your house.
Oh, man.
But Arjuna, you know what I learned a couple of weeks ago, actually? That room behind Ted, I've always been curious what that room was, because we've seen it through all these years of the PRL. Is it a basement? Is it a bedroom? Is it a sim room? I believe it is just the basement that's been commandeered by Ted here.
Ah, okay. Ted, I do have to ask you, by the way, you've got no Nick McLaughlin around to disturb you in your ear, so what's the plan? Are you just going to be sitting by yourself for 40 minutes and hopefully surviving?
So Nick's actually in my Twitch chat, so
nice.
He's watching. I think he's actually watching the broadcast too. I don't know how he's doing it out where he is in vacation.
How does he have that much internet?
I don't know, but yeah, it should be a fun time. The Ferrari seems to have really good race pace, but the qualifying obviously is no match for the Porsche field that we have. So, but it's good to see some other non-Porsches in front of me, because I think I've been that for the past couple of weeks. So yeah, good.
We'll let you.
Ted, yeah, just like at Pocono tomorrow, 5 wide into turn 1. That's my last thing for you.
Oh my! Is the track even wide enough for 5 cars?
Yes.
I mean, you could try.
Don't ask me how I know. Ted Lowendick, as ever. Good Sport joins us there. But yes, this track can fit 5 wide. Let's hope they're not going to do that. Expectations, Joey. 40 minutes on the clock. Karl Modov, Dominic Olivier on the front row. Most stacked field in the series' history at VIR. Surely a chaotic opening lap.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see the field stacked on top of each other into turn 1, but I have a feeling we're going to see some people get aggressive. Look at Santos in 3rd. He's definitely going to be aggressive into turn 1.
It was a long hold from Ray Dominguez, and they got stacked up behind and made contact. Not going to be such a long hold from Karl Modov, who picks up the throttle, gets the green flag underway for round 4 of the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series. It's a tidy start, as initially they funnel into the braking zone, but brave from Emmanuel Santos, diving down the inside of Dominic Olivier, not going to be initially able to convert that position. Olivier gets the inside now, but Santos slams the door shut. Aggressive moves initially, but knowing that this is when you can make some dices. Beckham Jasir, the next to try and get past that number 9 machine.
2 of the most aggressive drivers in this series up front, but Trepanier gets turned. I think that was contact with either his teammate or Boris Ovando. Incredibly manages to get back on track without collecting anybody, but he's trying to rejoin the pack in the middle of the S's, and that is incredibly dicey in a PRE sandwich.
I think it was Simon Terrio that went off the track in the white advanced sim racing car. Always a little bit difficult at times to see. Look at the side up through the S's though. Single file through the field. You do not want to be door to door and losing time, tripping over one another in the early stages. Now got to be so careful. Don't be too tentative. Don't be too aggressive. Filing out onto this back straightaway. Get your momentum. Make sure you do not get swarmed. And if you're Karl Modov, try and break away from Emmanuel Santos. Look at that gap, 1.1 seconds clear.
I mean, I told you Santos was going to be aggressive into turn 1, and he absolutely was. Unfortunately for him, you know who's more aggressive? It's another driver who is usually more aggressive than him, Beckham Jasir, who almost sent it 3 wide. Everybody had a little bit of an argument, and eventually they resolved it with Santos about a second behind Karl Modolf here. I have a feeling Modolf's going to be backing off a little bit. He's going to be saving a little bit of fuel, waiting for the pit stop. Santos will probably be at 100% attack. And that should make things a little bit interesting here if Santos is able to close this down.
Not going to be easy to close, let alone pass. We know that. How aggressive do those behind want to get? Half look from Olivier in towards the opening corner. Not really anyone else shaping up at this stage. And so it's time to go and look at that opening lap. And out of turn 3, Terrio was already leading. I think that was on Boris Ovando. And, well, they all do a good job to get through there safely, but what was the slowdown like? I've got to wonder that.
I don't know here, but let's see what happened. That's Simon Terrio ahead of Ovando coming into the corner. I mean, I don't think Boris did much wrong there. I don't think Terrio did much wrong there. Just kind of a racing incident with close quarters on lap 1, but that was Terrio-fying.
Look at the gap. Olivier has made a mistake, and hungry Porsches swarming behind. They don't have the dinosaur front end like Rexy does at the front. You have to go all the way back to the Vaporworks cars to find out. But almost chock-a-block Concertina in through onto the back straightaway. You can tell that there are some cars struggling. Just as much as I'm struggling to get my words out.
You got chock-a-block Concertina out at least.
I mean, I make an effort.
That's a band name for the future.
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, you've got songs out there. I mean, I can play the guitar.
I mean, it kind of sounds like a bad cover of Bittersweet Symphony, the chock-a-block Concertina. I'd listen to it.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to brainstorm about that after this. End of lap 2, 3 seconds the margin at the front. First Olivier made the mistake. Now Santos has made a mistake. Bye-bye, Karl Modolf at the end of the second lap.
This is insane stuff. 144.6 on that last lap. Santos 146.2, and Karl Modolf with the fastest lap of the race for that matter. He has this place figured out, and he wasn't that far on pole in qualifying. He had, what, about half a tenth over second, and suddenly he's just said, you know what, I am running away with this race. I'm not worrying about saving fuel at all. I'm going to let all of you guys argue over second, because he kind of knows that Santos and Jasir are going to get aggressive. Dominic Olivier, very fast driver in his own right, but he definitely a little bit less aggressive than those guys. And Vincent Trepanier just kind of biding his time thinking about the championship, I think. And all of that adds up to Karl Modolf being a very, very comfortable guy.
Looks more comfortable than Vincent Trepanier is right now, because Beckham Jasir and Dominic Olivier stumbling over one another in the opening sector. Continuing just to bleed the time right here. Side by side they're going to go. And this is where we saw some drivers try the switch back and it not work out. But this is the other danger when you're this much line astern. If you try and go outside, cars will try and sneak up the inside. Not happening over here. It's instead back in that second grouping of cars where Scott Kimbrough leads side by side behind with Sean Dickinson and Alessandro Torchio. But it is going to see potentially a rise here for a move for Beckham Jasir to see Vincent Trepanier get alongside.
Trepanier definitely smart, though. He knows you don't go side by side through there, and he backs out of it. But Torchio and Sean Dickinson, they're going to prove that you can go side by side through there if you're courteous. But you do have to be very, very courteous, and you do have to be a little bit timid and trepidatious, if anything, if you are Sean Dickinson. He backed out of that move because he knew Torchio was coming through. And that's how you survive going side by side through there. Torchio definitely looking forward.
Trepidatious sounds like something out of a song from the 60s, you know. It kind of has a super fragilistic espialidocious vibe to it, but I did manage to get I said all of that. I'm quite impressed with myself. I was not sure about that. Anyway, also opening lap, Kevin Simpson, Miguel Angel Fonseca. Not an easy start for plenty.
Yeah, a little bit of anti-disestablishmentarianism back there. Not going too well. But let's see, is this going to be a dive from Simpson, or is it just going to be a little bit of a checkup and an argument? That's Miguel in the white Porsche. Oh! A little bit of a tag from one of the SRT Porsches.
It's the 43. The fan club's not going to be thrilled with that.
I don't know. Matt Scherf I mean, it's basically the same thing we saw with Ovando and Terrio, just on lap 1, cars tripping over each other, but they ended up far worse off than Terrio and Ovando did. Matt Scherf, I mean, he's almost back to what his number is. He's in 41st place and 43, but hopefully that's quite further up once the 30 minutes of this race go on.
4.6 seconds, and we're not even at the end of lap number 4. There is one driver and one driver alone that is in the 144s. His name is Karl Modoff, and we might as well throw the checkered flag at this point in time, because there is no one that is catching him unless we can put a commentator's curse down on him.
I mean, you were certainly trying to say there ain't no catching him there, but remember, Karl Modoff has had acts of God against him more than any other driver. I remember he was leading at Long Beach a couple of seasons ago. Internet kicked him out. Remember he was leading at Watkins Glen a couple of weeks ago. Fuel ran out. So it's never sure. Karl Modoff is an agent of surprise, but I have a feeling that with a 5-second gap, he's not going to be worrying about fuel, and hopefully his internet is more stable than it was 2 seasons ago.
Hopefully. They're fighting a little bit further back. This is 32nd position, where we've just seen Nico Sanidakis get in front of Ryan O'Connor, Philippe Magnon, and Keaton Marchesi. Behind them, you've got Faris Nasser in the Ferrari as well, really pushing each other as hard as they can. See on the timing tower that Beckham Jasir is dropping down, but hasn't lost too much ground, so maybe just a bit of a slowdown or something. He's come out better than Artie Mercedes, might come out better than Jeremy Gonsalves, because there was definitely contact with Scott Kimbrough, and now Gonsalves going off to another state.
To the lead, Jeremy Gonsalves takes the lead, but eventually he realizes this is not... Oh, don't do that, Jeremy. You're going to get disqualified.
He doesn't
got to
have
turn
a
around
choice.
and go back. He does have a choice. He can turn around and go left to get back on the track, but he's going to cut the track here. He's going to cut the track here and get disqualified.
Honestly, I know this is the rough thing to say, but he does not have a choice. The cars do not have enough grip to be able to work through, and so that is day done for Jeremy Gonsalves in the most unfortunate but in some ways slapstick comedy of ways. And so we will grab a look at the replay in a few moments time and pick apart what happened to him. Not the only car, as mentioned, to be in some sort of strife. It's been a cleaner lap 1, but it is starting to get a little bit more slippery, much like we traditionally expect here at VIR. Our new Mercedes is going to prove just how treacherous it can be, alongside the Mercedes, who just elbows Mercedes off the road.
You want to say Mercedes a couple more times?
I mean, that was factually a correct statement.
Yeah, it is not confusing at all that Artie Mercedes is not in a Mercedes, because he was in a Mercedes before. When he was in the GT4 series here, he did race a Mercedes, but he's not quite recreating that. Here's Gonzalo Cortez and Gonsalves. A little bit of an argument up over turn 9 there. We've seen that so many times. Somebody needs to take a screenshot of Gonsalves in the lead, and Santos is off from second as well.
So did Beckham Jasir do the same thing that Emmanuel Santos has just done, and maybe go a little bit wide in the complex out of turn 3? Santos maybe still serving a slowdown, drop behind Scott Kimbrough as well. Clearly conditions not simple, but it's now 6 seconds at the front, the margin. Dominic Olivier is back up to second, and Vincent Trepanier, don't look, he's in third.
If he can make the move on Olivier here, he's not going to be in the fight for the win, I don't think, but he's still going to be very, very comfortable in the lead of the championship after this race weekend ends. But what we've seen so far is that you can't count anything out here. There's guaranteed to be some more mistakes. You see one dive into turn 10 there, a few more drivers taking a look into the grass there. Not quite as wide as Gonsalves ended up, though, so they were able to actually rejoin the track at turn 10.
It proves that this is not a passing opportunity. Philippe Magnon had to give plenty of room to Ryan O'Connor. Magnon actually got a little bit compromised initially in the overspeed. I think Ryan O'Connor thought he could get on through, but you could see was going to miss the apex. Missed the apex. Magnon goes wide, but I think actually came off better because he was able to get back onto the grippy tarmac in short of order. 10 minutes now in the book. Still, Karl Modoff leads at the very front, but it is by 6 full seconds. Continues to just break away from those behind. And Dominic Olivier not yet making a mistake. We'll have to see if he's going to be able to keep this up, continue to put the pressure. Keaton Marchesi is off the track. It's not for the first time today. This was the first time.
Into the final corner. I know. I've done that so many times there. It's so easy to do. You want to take as much speed as possible into the first part of that final complex into turn 17, or into turn 16, rather, and then you just get punished for that the second you get down into the hog pen. You just drive it off the road. Let's see what happened to Santos here. Was it a slowdown? Was it a mistake? It was not a slowdown. Clips the grass, too overeager on the throttle, clips the grass, and has to go for a little bit of rallycross.
Impressive car control, I'll say that. But I don't think he'll be too thrilled with much else about that. Arnaud Genet's been off the track for a few seconds as well. Plenty of drivers are having to break out their rallycross skills. It's up at turn 10. And given that we've seen a couple of cars have hellacious moments, Michael Terrafino in the Team Beef BMW will be very glad that Genet didn't have a bigger spill, as I think are we in the commentary booth.
Well, you know what he did right there? He kept the wheel pointed straight and probably lifted off the throttle. And that's what you got to do when you're in the grass, though. You want to get back on the throttle to get back on track as fast as possible, but that just hurts you more. It takes the car out of control. But luckily, Arnaud Genet has lots of experience from driving off the track, and he knew what to do.
Oh, was that a pointed barb? Lots of experience driving off the track?
I mean, he probably does. He probably does.
I mean, I think that's what racing drivers explicitly don't want to do.
He's got more experience. Well, I've got more experience off the track than he does, but he's far more controlled than I am, so I mean, he gets some credit for that.
It's not Spa 2022, that's all I'm saying. Miguel Angel Fonseca has found some grass and is not heading down to pit lane, so that's a good sign. Clearly no damage. Nicholas Johnson sits 20th. He's just taken that away from Justin Delano, and Ted Lowendick has been able to slip through as well. Really hard fighting in what are cool conditions. The cloud cover has gotten super strong.
Temperature's coming down. We were in the triple digits in qualifying. We're now down to the double digits. This is a heck of a train, and a lot of drivers here who are going to be aggressive for different reasons. Nick Johnston, always aggressive. Delano and Smoger, drivers moving up from the fixed series. They're trying to prove themselves, and they're all behind Ted Lowendick, who is lonely tonight, racing for his own amusement, racing for the amusement of the 5 or 6 people who are watching him on Twitch right now. And he's got a whole host of cars behind him.
You just had to say 5 or 6 as well, right? You couldn't just say the few people.
It probably is more than that, to give him a little bit of credit, you know. But even with Arnaud, you know, sometimes you just got to roast the drivers a little bit, even if it is factually incorrect.
Yeah. Well, we won't spill too much right now, but, you know, there'll be plenty of opportunity for roasting of our champions later this season.
Yeah.
I've said enough.
Maybe.
I've said enough, haven't I?
Well, you know who has won a race this season?
Who?
Arnaud, actually. In the one non-broadcasted series, Arnaud Genet does have a win, so we will get to have a little bit more fun with him. But Torquio's in.
You're right. There is a non-broadcast series. I always forget about that on Thursday nights. Here's the Junkos Hollinger esports machine for what would have been a pit stop, except he couldn't find a stall. Now has found a stall. Can see how easy it is to make a mistake. Not just to go deep, but sometimes to be a bit too shallow.
Just a little bit of a bobble there. Sometimes when you have your graphics settings tuned a little bit weird, you might not be able to see your pit crew. You might not be able to see your box. Your crew chief might not call it correctly. But Torquio's in the box for a very, very long time, so I don't think this is a scheduled stop. But Sean Dickinson is around in the S's. That's a weird place to go around, so I almost wonder if he was side-by-side with somebody, maybe some of these guys who are still side-by-side.
Yeah, his teammate, Ryan Pucktel, has got Acosta, Malagon, and then another of the SimCity racing machines, Martin Crisp, tucked in behind. Down the hill they go. So much compression and elevation to contend with here at the Virginia International Raceway. It is definitely an unforgiving track in so many ways, and I get the sense it's probably not going to be too dissimilar to what we saw earlier with Emmanuel Santos. Unfortunately, he gets a little bit more out of shape. I think Juan Malagon was squeaking on through, but not able to take avoiding action. And poor Sean Dickinson could do nothing but watch.
And ironically, he was behind Santos when that happened, but look at that! Oh, Malagon did get clipped. I thought he made it through, but not quite. Got very, very lucky there. Fantastic save to not lose more spots there. Pucktel gets through, Acosta gets through, and he's got to rejoin outside of the top 10 now. And this is kind of funny to see 5th or 12th and 13th, Acosta and Malagon, the guys who fought for the championship last year, deep in the field. But the pit stops are kicking off legitimately here with Fernando Jaquez.
Yep, no, a little bit earlier than maybe I expected, but you're expecting these drivers to be done with their pit stop cycles probably 10 minutes or so from now. Joey correctly points out that Acosta, Malagon, two of the championship protagonists last season, a season where we talked about those drivers not having a win until the final couple of rounds. Very different sort of complexion, very different feel. Not even halfway through this 2023 Season 3, Karl Modov just continues, by the way, to stretch his legs up towards the very front of the field. Slowly getting going, I'd say, Karl Modov in his full-time return to the series. And you can track that in terms of the championship points he's accumulated in each of the rounds as well. Getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger.
Let's think, if he didn't run out of fuel at Watkins Glen, how many points could we add to his total? Probably 18 points, because that's how many Ovando scored. Karl Modov will be in the lead of the championship right now if he didn't run out of fuel at Watkins Glen. So that mistake's going to be hurting him. He's going to get a drop week. He'll hope that race is his drop week, but if he does have one more bad week, those 18 points are going to be very, very painful for him.
I feel like that fuel thing is just part of returning to the series full time, right? And getting back into that rhythm of understanding how many laps you should expect to do, how much fuel you should expect to carry, and how close to the margins you can afford to get. And so, it's a rude wake-up call, I guess. Rude wake-up call from Vincent Trepanier down the inside of Dominic Olivier. No one saw that coming except Trepanier himself.
And Boris Ovando saw it coming too, because he's still side-by-side with Trepanier, trying to steal second from him. Still around the outside here. It's a very difficult place to go around the outside. And remember, Ovando came together with Trepanier's teammate here earlier, but Ovando squeezes through. Trepanier lifts off the gas to not get in the grass, and Ovando does make it through in the most aggressive way possible.
So much respect was shown there between the two. To be able to stick it out side by side, cannot speak highly enough to the racecraft, to the respect being shown. Just look how many Porsches, though, continue to be funneled in behind. You go all the way back to 9th position and Scott Kimbrough, where you find drivers in this train, and they are pushing so hard that they are getting tires off into the grass. Not pushing hard enough to be as quick as Karl Modov, still the quickest car out on track, but slowly, with pit stops surely kicking around in drivers' minds, if you see this sort of fighting, try and find a clean air pocket to try and get into.
And the top non-Porsche right now, you have to go back to 15th place. Michael Terrafino, actually, in his trusty BMW. He's having the best race he's ever had since moving up from the Fixed Series. He's doing a fantastic job. And I have a feeling there might be a couple more positions in store for him with how aggressive these guys have been up front. I don't think we've seen the last driver off the road, and it might come from this hornet's nest up here.
No one dives to the lane this time by, but reaching halfway this time, or next time technically. Might not be too far away from thoughts. You can see how many of the Precision Racing esports machines are in the mix. Ovando, Olivier, Diaz. You've got 2 Advanced Motorsports entries for Trepanier and for Terrio, and then the rest, Jasir, Cortez, and Kimbrough, all working by themselves for the most part. See if the team alliances end up being a bit of a factor. Got that second choo-choo train as well. Still Pucktel that leads this grouping. We've got Abner Acosta, the defending champion, Juan Malagon, Martin Chris, Michael Terrafino, and then Arnaud Genet tucked in behind. But we're a visual representation of how difficult it is to pass, how long these queues are building up to be.
How deep is that? I think that goes all the way back to Ted Lowendick in the Ferrari, actually, in 20th place, 18th place. I got to give him more credit, but yeah, look at this. He's probably pretty happy right now that he's in this train. He can basically see the top 10 up ahead with Emmanuel Santos, but passing is going to be a whole nother thing. I wonder if he has any alternate strategy options to get by these guys as Terrafino and Genet end up side by side. I wonder if Terrafino has a slowdown somehow, because he was very off pace there.
I wonder if he made a similar mistake to what we've seen from some of the other drivers. He's going to get very close to pinching Nicholas Johnston, who almost moves to the left and saying, a little bit more space please, your BMW's quite loud. We'll slide on through, and slams the door shut on Terrafino, pops back to the outside. Oh, so there's some great racing going on back through the field. It's not that you can't not pass at VIR. It's just incredibly difficult to do so. Let's check out what happened to Marc-Andre Desjardins, by the way, up in towards turn number 1. He's got a CRT machine on the inside, and it's C-bow, unfortunately, to Desjardins.
Indeed, I think that was Fernando Jaquez, and I gotta put some blame there on Desjardins. Jaquez had pitted, he was on a different strategy, he was just trying to get by, and Desjardins just kind of crowded him into turn 1. So, not really any reason to do that when you're on a completely different strategy, but he might not have known that wasn't for position, and it all comes undone for those two. Bad luck there, but look at this train still going. We're starting to see some drivers come into the pits now. Spears came in, Terrafino came in. Somebody in the back of this train has to be thinking, like Scott Kimbrough, I might be a little bit quicker if I come into the pits here, and I might be able to jump some of these guys.
So he is, Scott Kimbrough, 3 seconds behind second spot in 9th. So if he wants an undercut, I don't think you're necessarily expecting it to give you 3 full seconds, but if it gives you a second, that's 3 positions, let's say. Another seconds, another 3 positions, and etc., etc. So any margin that you can build is important. Counterpoint to that is, if you already think you've lost too much time to Karl Modoff, go as long as possible, save as much fuel as you can, and similar to Dominguez, let's see if you can have a slightly shorter stop a bit later on. But the conditions here seem to have brightened a little bit. Tire wear, not going to be a quote-unquote factor, but maybe the temperature still in the triple digits in Imperial units. Just be something that they think about. So, Karl Modoff, 1:45.072 last time by. The pace has definitely equalized. It's not like Modoff is that much quicker than those behind. It's just that they didn't have a very good start to the race, and he took full advantage.
He was able to pull about a 4-second gap on Santos, and then continued pulling and pulling and pulling, and honestly, I think he might just be backing off a little bit here to save a little bit of fuel, maybe shorten his pit stop just for his own sake of fun. But he is still extending the gap here, especially in the first sector. He is almost unmatched. Ovando can't even get close to him. They might be equal on lap time altogether, but I would not be surprised if it's 10, 11, 12 seconds at the end of this race between first and second.
Even the lap times, though, have come down in terms of fastest. Ovando's got a 44.9 on the board, so only less than 3 tenths, 2.5 tenths off of what Modoff's best is. It was, I think, just the struggles initially. Olivier and maybe Santos not having initial speed with whatever setups that they brought. It's a glorious sound of Porsche. And you can hear it all the way back through 14th spot. Nicholas Johnston, the first non-Porsche in his Mercedes. Behind him, Ted Lowendick in his Ferrari. Ethan Bass is up to 19th in his Ford GT. So there are a handful of the non-Porsches working on Ford, but they are still few and far between with how the meta has ended up playing out with the balance of performance for this latest edition of the GT3 BOP. No one exiting off the stage right at the front of this queue for second. In fact, no one at all.
And if you remember that battle we saw a little bit earlier with Terrafino and Johnston and Lowendick, that was the battle for the lead in the non-Porsche class, if we can call it that. They're not racing in another class, but they've essentially been informally like GT 3.5 this season, trying to be the top non-Porsche. So that's going to be very interesting over the next couple of minutes, but pit stops are kicking off here. We're past halfway. More drivers coming in. The 8 is in. Ethan Bass is in. That's Smoger in the Porsche. There's got to be more drivers coming in soon, but a lot of them extending it for as long as possible.
Yep. Alexander Breton is following them down as well at show 2. So we are left with 23 cars yet to dive down to pit lane. Of course, we'll try and go as long as possible. We are near that point that we think they will all come in at the same time. It's going to be interesting to see just how frenetic pit road is going to get. If in this queue, for example, 2nd through 9th will come in at the very same time. Behind Pucktel all the way through Lowendick, so 10th through 16th could find themselves transiting through the box at very similar times as well. And while you can ghost through other cars in pit lane, there are also portions of iRacing's pit stops that you do have to worry about some of that contact. 14 minutes left then to run. Still 8.5 seconds for Modov at the front in the 9:48. He is coming down to pit lane, I can confirm. Can anyone go a lap longer? Can anyone go on to lap 16? Ovando can, Trepanier can, a couple more will from behind, but pit stops seemingly, well and truly, will be underway.
Yeah, basically their only hope is that Karl Modov ends up in traffic in some inopportune way and gets taken out like Fernando Jaquez did with Desjardins into turn 1. If that doesn't happen, he's basically got the race won, but basically everybody behind Modov has come in other than the top 8 right now, so he's not going to come out in traffic. He's going to come out with 8 seconds up the road to Ted Lowendick. This is absolutely perfect for Modov, and right now it's basically a race for second, which is going to be incredibly interesting with the split strategies here.
So Olivier wins that race for off pit lane for those behind, in front of Diaz's teammate. Artie Mercedes is going to get in the mix, who is yet to pit in front of Simon Theriault, but as Ovando and Trepanier continue to navigate their way, now over the crest of 10, down in towards the hashtag RIP Oak Tree corner. See how it plays out. This is not what Simon Theriault wants, though. Side by side with the Seabow Racing number 25, and Artie Mercedes on the recovery drive. Compromises Simon Theriault, now 2.5 seconds off of Michael Diaz.
It's kind of a reversal of fortunes for CRT. Fernando Jaquez got taken out by a driver on an alternate strategy, and right now Artie Mercedes not racing on the same strategy as Theriault. He doesn't have any real reason to be holding him up right now, but he is racing for his life here. And Theriault needs to find a way to get by. Probably going to find that way by on the back straight, unless he wants to send it around the outside in turns 8 and 9, but Jasir and Cortez.
And that is Beckham Jasir that's taking a shortcut. Gonzalo Cortez that's still trying to spin himself around. Ovando's off to the lane. Trepanier follows him as well. Big drama, though, as we enter into this most crucial phase of the race. Now it is just about Ovando and Trepanier ultimately versus Dominic Olivier, who makes his way into the final sector with just 2 more corners to go.
Gonna spit some numbers at you here. 10 seconds in the box for Olivier, 10.6 for Michael Diaz. Compare that with what Trepanier and Ovando and even Kimbrough can do here. It's gonna be 10.1 for Ovando. He's gonna jump Trepanier. Trepanier a little bit slow, 11.2. And here they come down the front straight. Here comes Olivier. I don't think he's going to get by. He is going to get by Trepanier, but not Ovando.
It's not going to be enough to get in front. It is enough to be a Precision Racing Esports 2 and 3. Ovando in front of Olivier have been able to demote Trepanier down to 4th. Diaz makes it 3 Precision Racing Esports cars inside of the top 5. But as ever, the pit stop stretch things up, and the gap's no longer within tenths of a second.
And remember when Ted Lowendick was at the back of that train, he's gained a ton of spots over that pit cycle. He's currently P13. Clearly staying that extra lap out has been phenomenal for him. He's up a bunch of spots, and there's all sorts of shuffling. Kimbrough's up 3 spots. Theriault's down a couple of spots after getting held up. Malagon's up into the top 10. That was an excellent pit cycle. That was very exciting.
There's no one way to play a pit cycle. That's the other thing. You might have success doing something totally different to others that have success, while someone that tries to copy what someone else does might not have that same luck. It is also situational, that you do have to very much keep that in mind. That's Ethan Bass and Nathan Bartley that I think have come together. Bartley stricken with damaged suspension, and plenty for us to take a look at, and we'll have to start with what happened with Beckham Jasir and Gonzalo Cortez as the fiercely forward car just gets tagged in the right rear.
It's fiercely backwards now, but Gonzalo Cortez was nowhere near actually making that braking point. I don't know what he was thinking there. Trying to be super aggressive, just way too late in the brakes, and that is going to be a costly mistake. That is going to make Beckham Jasir very, very unhappy. He is finding a shortcut there. Look, he's to the left of the gazebo, while Gonzalo Cortez is just trying to figure out where he is.
It's a shortcut. It's going to give him a slowdown, though. Here's what happened as Ethan Bass got squeezed by Nathan Bartley. Into a straight concrete wall, not even into the tires next to it. What happened to Ethan Bass in the blue oval, though? Because his purple machine exited off to the left and was never to be seen again.
Yeah, it wasn't a very smart move from Ethan Bass to send it in there, and he runs into the hardest tire wall in human history. but that was not a very smart move to send it side by side into the S's there. He was not fully alongside. That move was not going to work. And unfortunately, him and Nathan Bartley ended up very, very damaged, and I think some marshals are going to be traumatized by a Ferrari coming straight at them.
Just a little bit close for comfort, that's for sure. Not the only driver Not the only driver having issues. Here's Miguel Angel Fonseca, still carrying that paint from Fuji. Doesn't seem to have brought him much luck here today.
Oh, almost kept it out of the wall, but this has not been a good day for Miguel, unfortunately. Let's take the coverage off of him. Just let him suffer in peace. He's going to be looking forward to Spa next week, I think. If I remember correctly, he's had some great results there in the past, so see if that's his redemption day.
I'm not going to be here for Spa next week. At least I don't think I'm going to be. I'm meant to be going on a trip, but I don't have my flights booked or visa yet. So, you know, those are two things that you do kind of need. But that's besides the by. It will work out. I'll be honest. It's not that I'm disappointed to be away from you, Joey. Not that I'm looking forward to missing PRL. I'm just looking forward to not having more GT3 racing at Spa because, boy, did I have to deal with some dramatic GT3 racing at Spa this past weekend.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Here it comes.
I mean,
you were right. You were correct.
Anyone who has been around top-level sim, not even top-level sim racing, you could be in bottom split sim racing, and you would know.
I can guarantee we won't see that in the PRL next week. I can say that much.
Please.
That won't happen.
Oh, I enjoy the PRL because I don't have to worry about stuff like that. It's a wonderful community, actually.
Max wouldn't have done that if the iron hammer of Arnaud Genet was behind him.
Well, I think that part of the reason why so many of our commentators go and race, Joey has done competition in the PRL, Terry, Dylan, now Ewan have gone and competed, is because it's just a really fun place. And so I'd highly encourage anyone. PrecisionRacingLeague.com, we're coming up to the halfway mark of Season 3. Season 4's around the corner. Never a better time to get into the community, and maybe Season 4, get behind the wheel.
And it doesn't even have to be Season 4. There's still lots of spots open in the GR86 series, for example. There's spots open in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge, which, if we're correct, a very well-known driver will be joining in the next couple of weeks. And as well as you get to the halfway point of the season, if drivers miss 3 races in a row without alerting somebody in the admin team, their spot is opened up. So if you do want to race GT3s, there may be some spots open over the next couple of weeks as some drivers who have fallen off get kind of taken down the priority list. So there will definitely be openings in every single series.
I like that rule. It's a nice little rule to have as well. Keeps everyone... you don't have to be here every week. Real life comes in. It's part of the reason why the drop weeks are there. But just remember that you signed up for something and committed and took a spot away from someone else. Ted Lowendick jumped a few spots through the pit stop cycle, but now has to face up to those that he has passed. Arnaud Genet's on the hunt in the SimCity Racing Purple number 312. In towards turn number 3 they will head. A bit of a gap opening up to those in front, and Lowendick increasingly with no draft to help him in the Ferrari versus Porsche battle.
He's the top non-Porsche too, and he sees behind him, those are the guys he was fighting with a little bit earlier. Johnston and Terrafino have not gone anywhere. So he's hoping that he can keep this little Genet buffer behind him and keep that little bit of protection. You can see he is talking into the void there. He's talking to his Twitch chat. I don't know how Ted does that. He is able to just... He's not that he's losing focus. He has like another part of his brain that's focused on the race, and the rest of it is just laughing and making jokes and reading whatever Jerry and Jim or whatever the guys who come to his Twitch chat are. It's incredible.
There are some people... I'm someone that does like a little bit of talking when I do endurance races. Now, I have teammates who are ultimately oppose that. Not when I'm driving, but when they're driving. And so they want a very different atmosphere. Different people just process speed in different ways as well. It's such an interesting thing to see as well. The one thing that I do think that we're both aligned on, Joey, is 4 minutes to go. Let's not disturb Ted right now. Let's let him focus in this battle, because we could interrupt him, but I'd feel very unfortunate if he was to spin out from 13th in a fight with Arnaud Genet as they head up to turn number 1.
Got a good run, Arnaud. Let's see if we can get to the outside here. He's basically going for a bump draft on Ted here, 1 day early. To the outside to turn 1. Can he beat later on the brakes? He is just a little bit, but not late enough. Going to try for the switchback. It's purple versus purple here. It's excellent color theory, not so excellent for Arnaud Genet trying to make the move. Ted's going to hang on for the moment. Here comes Genet again. VIR, excellent track for those switchbacks, but none of them worked for Genet.
You got to be a bit more aggressive, and I mean that in a bad way, I think. Be aggressive with your sends into some of these slower corners because you just don't have the speed with which that you can pull alongside, and so it's why when we do see side-by-side it often leads to drama, just because both drivers don't want to give up ground. They've already seen a big send, they don't want to have more sends. It will be 2 to go this time by. Modov's lead has come down, but he's managing the pace, managing the expectations, wants to get to that checkered flag. Avando's broken clear of his teammates behind. Olivier still sits on the 3rd step of the podium, but with Trepanier and Diaz right in his tire tracks.
Just see how difficult of a corner this is. It's the most difficult kind of corner where you're braking while turning and then immediately going in the opposite direction. So you've got to get it slowed down up over the top of the hill into turn 14, and then instantly you've got to be hitting that apex on the right-hand side, and then you're dropping about 2 stories down the hill and getting back on the throttle for a moment. It is an incredibly difficult final sector, and Michael Diaz staring at the back of Vincent Trepanier, hoping that he makes a mistake in one of those most difficult sectors and opens up the door. Unfortunately, that is not a thing that Vincent Trepanier does. He is not a mistake-ridden driver. Michael Diaz is basically just trying to keep the ultimate pressure on him and hope that a door opens.
I think if you're Vincent Trepanier as well, you're content riding where you are. 4th position ultimately. Might not be a podium, no, but it is solid championship points, and we talk about needing to be consistently up towards the front, whereas Michael Diaz right behind his main championship leader. Boris Avando 2nd. 4th, maintains that consistency. I should point out, Carl Modov's about to win the race from 4th in the championship. Dominic Olivier, 5th, is 3rd. The top 5 in points are top 5 in track, just a little bit misordered in terms of where they sit. It's what we are really expecting come the end, is that you're going to have to be up towards the front week in and week out. Drop weeks are more about, oh, I finished in 10th rather than finish in 8th that 1 week. Just because I missed a little bit on setup, missed a little bit on speed. Setup's going to be an important factor as well, because we've got some tracks coming up later this season where you might all be in Porsches, yes, but you might be able to find a little bit more speed. Think of Phillip Island, for example, Joey, and what a contrast of styles that can be.
In Phillip Island, there's 2 very, very long straights, and the rest of the track is high-speed corners, low-speed corners. It's a whole mix of things. Le Mans as well. That's always a difficult place to set up a car with the very, very, very long straight lines. And VIR, for that matter, is a very difficult place to set up a car because you do have a couple of long straights, but basically none of the rest of the track is straight. So do you want to go low downforce? Do you want to go a little bit higher downforce? It looks like basically all of these guys up front have ended up on a similar setup, but Trepanier very quick in a straight line, peeks to the outside of Olivier into turn 1. That's going to let Michael Diaz poke a nose to the inside, not quite all the way there. But that is exactly what Diaz needs if he wants to make this move. He basically needs Trepanier to rest up, but there he goes!
Inside through turn 3, and it's going to be forced. Trepanier, not just forceful with the defense, equally forceful on the offense from Michael Diaz. Slightly peels them off the back of Dominic Olivier, but it goes to what I was saying earlier. You've got to be so committed when you send moves like that. Great respect again shown from both parties. Committed on the send, but fair with the move.
Trepanier is going to be thinking about the championship right now because as it stands, he will still lead the championship. He's going to lose about 12 points or so to Carl Modov, but he will still be in the lead. And Michael Diaz just made a critical mistake there out of turn 10. Was able to save it, but he did clip the grass, and that's going to keep him out of contention, I think. But let's just take a look at his little dive again. He honestly almost had the move made, but Vincent Trepanier goes for a little bit of an oval move, squeezes it down as much as possible. Diaz can't get on the throttle as early as he wants, and Trepanier hangs on around the outside.
Well, I think part of the reason why there was such desperation in that move was time had ticked away to the point where we were on the final lap of the race, and it was a final opportunity to potentially work up to a fourth, if not third position. It's Carl Modov, though, that waltzed away at the front. There's a wry smile on his face. It doesn't feel, I'm sure, like a traditional race victory. Flag to flag for the 948, and Karl Modoff returns to his winning ways.
26 wins in the PRL. That is a very, very large number. Karl Modoff only wants to keep adding to that. He's looking at 30 in the face. If he can win just 4 more races, which is entirely possible this season, he'll reach that critical point. You see Ted Lowendick did cross the line there, 13th, top non-Ford. Johnston and Terrafino kind of finish off the non-Porsche podium, I could say.
I was about to say, if we had Fords all the way through the 12th position, could you?
I wish.
Could you imagine how happy Ethan Bass and
me too?
Yeah, and Eric Kulago would be. I'm struggling to remember who drove the Ford to such success in the Fixed Series last season. It finally came to my mind. So waiting for those final cars to streak to the line. Diaz unable to get past Trepignet, who settled for 4th. Again, top 5 in the championship, top 5 on track, albeit slightly mixed up in the order. I think that goes to tell you what a season we've had so far and what we expect in the next 6 rounds.
I'm excited to see how things get shaken up at Spa next week. So that's always a place where you get some interesting drivers up front, and it's the place where a lot of the usual suspects are usually up front. We've seen Trepignet win there. We've seen Dominic Olivier win there. We've seen Diego Morales win there, who we didn't see tonight, but hopefully he'll be back in the field. And I think that will be a very, very good race, and it's a shame you're going to miss it, Arjuna, if you end up in whatever mysterious country you're going to.
Yeah, well, it all depends on whether my flights and visa end up getting sent to me or not. Here's a look at those race results. We'll have a chat with the drivers as well. 4.5 seconds the margin between Modoff and Ovando. Doesn't tell the story, though, because really, Modoff, once he cleared up the road, was managing the tempo. Ovando will feel, though, that maybe he had some pace to challenge. Well, we'll never know. Dominic Olivier makes it Precision Racing Esports double podium, albeit in separate teams for the championship. Vincent Trepignet 4th. Our championship leader continues to run his way on forward, while Michael Diaz 5th. Scott Kimbrough 6th, Salman Terrio 7th. Abner Acosta works his way forward to 8th, with Juan Malagon and then Martin Chris through your top 10. Abner Acosta gained 9 positions, as did a handful just missing out on top 10 spots. Not Ryan Pucktel, he was only +2, but Fernando Yaquez as well as Ted Lowendick and Arnaud Genet. The trio +9, Nicholas Johnson +5 to 15th, while Michael Terrafino climbs to 16th in front of Gonzalo Cortez, who drops to 17th. Noah Anderson, Evan Smogor, and then Justin Delano make up the rest of the top 20, with 21st seeing Joshua Spears, continuing the swarm of Porsches. Gary Brown is very much Midtown Gary Brown right now, but he is very much finding his feet and continuing to just get more accustomed to the sprint series. Audi Mercedes 23rd, Joseph Carnes, Philip Magnon, Ryan O'Connor, Jay Steffi, Sean Dickinson, Nico Sunny-Dakis, and then Matt Scherf through your top 30. +12 for Joseph Carnes, the biggest mover on the day. 31st went the way of Alexander Breton. Kevin Simpson behind him with Alexander Dorcio, Marc-Andre Deschardin, and then Faris Nazar all on the lead lap. Not the case for Miguel Angel Fonseca or Ethan Bass, Nathan Bartley, Beckham Jasiro, Keaton Marchesi, as we begin to get into those that had some issues. Emmanuel Santos, Jeremy Gonzalez, and then Patrick Fogel, the 43, took the green flag, with not as many making it to the end. We will dive straight in towards victory lane, where Karl Modoff is ready to have a chat with us. Karl, it's another victory for you, but it all came on the back of a bit of a breakaway at the start. What was going through your mind when you saw, what was it, 6 laps in, you're 7 seconds clear?
Yeah, around this track, it's a really great feeling. This track is so on the knife edge, and every corner, you're just usually sweating it, just trying not to die. So when you get a lead like that, it definitely makes it a lot easier. I was actually really surprised after the first lap coming out of Oak Tree. I had like a second and a half. So I don't know if Emmanuel made a mistake behind me or what, but that definitely made my day a lot easier driving up front.
Well, I'm glad that you got your mic working first. I just wanted to point that out. Second, slowly getting back into the rhythm, it feels, of the full season championship. Had the slight miscalculation on fuel earlier, but now in what we feel is the most competitive that this series has ever been. Where do you go from here? Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's back. I had to click. Yeah, it's a super competitive field. Each week you show up and you never know, like, there's really 10 guys that every week could be on pole or run up front. And seems to be me, Dominic, and Vincent seem to be consistently right there. So I see them kind of as my main threats this season. But like I said, anyone come from anywhere. So I'm just going to try and approach each week with the most practice that I can get. You know, everyone's trying to do the same with life and everything, and just show up as prepared as possible. Next week is Spa, which I think everyone has a million laps on, so I'm expecting a super tough race. It's also a great track, so next week should be really awesome. Really looking forward to that.
Well, best of luck for the 24 Hours of Spa coming up this weekend, and we'll see you in 7 days over at the Ardennes.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good night.
Always great to chat with Carl Modoff, who does have a working microphone this time around. Boris Ovando finishes second, got within 4.5 of the race leader come the checkered flag. He's standing by with Joey Tebben.
Indeed he is. Boris Ovando. That was a crazy run at the end there with you and Dominic and Vincent and Michael. Precision Racing Esports kind of strength in numbers here. What setup did you guys land on coming into this race? Was it low downforce, high downforce?
Actually, some of us used one setup, some of us used another setup. I think Dom wanted a little bit less wing. I opted for a little bit more wing, and I think you saw that benefited with the tires towards the end. I had a little bit more pace. I could be a little bit more consistent. I think that's what helped me pull away at the end.
So you're also a championship contender here, finishing in the top 3 as well, getting some good points, more points than Vincent. The second half of the season is coming very, very quickly. Are you going to be able to keep this consistency up for the next 6 weeks and keep fighting for this championship?
Well, I knew I had pace coming in this week, but I just keep struggling with the quality. So I think I really have to focus on that. I had pace to qualify for the top 3, and I started, I think, 7th. And just about got a lap in. So I really need to concentrate on qualifying better so that my performance could be more consistent.
Well, Boris, congrats on second place, and we'll see you at Spa next week after probably doing about 1,000 laps over the course of that weekend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Boris Ovando. He knows what it's all about. Dominic Olivier, the only driver, I believe, with the letters VIR in his last name. That's got to be some good luck, Dominic.
Yeah, that's a funny stat. I don't know if it's good luck, because, man, I had it coming my way all race.
Seemed very, very dicey out there, but next week it's off to Spa, a far more familiar track. It's a track where a lot of drivers are going to have a lot of laps over this weekend. Do you think that's going to be an advantage or a disadvantage? Is it going to even out the field, or some guy's going to be able to jump ahead? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the guys nearer at the front already put a lot of laps from week to week, but I think the guys probably, mid-pack and behind, they'll probably end up doing a lot more practice. So I think we could potentially see a much tighter field at Spa. But, as Spa goes, it's going to be a draft fest, saving fuel and getting it on strategy. So it should be interesting. VIR was fun today. I just didn't have the pace today. Well done to Carl. There was some scintillating pace out there. And well done to Vincent on the move. Caught me sleeping. And yeah, I'm just happy to get back on the podium.
Well, congrats on the podium. Good to speak to you again, and we'll see you next week, Dominic Ola VIR.
Thank you, man. You guys have a good one.
We got to coin that now, Arjuna. He might not have won, but he's got the track in his name.
But that's the problem. Don't you have to win to technically get the nickname? I don't know if there's any drivers that necessarily have to worry about us making a nickname with Spa-Francorchamps and their name, because that seems decidedly more difficult. But a week from today, July 25th, again, coverage begins 8:30 p.m. with the fixed series, leads into the sprint series, 35, 40-minute races. I mean, millions of laps. I don't think that's necessarily going to be wrong. Once you tot up all the laps that will get done in the iRacing Spa 24, we probably get close to 1 million. These drivers have so much knowledge of that world-famous 7-kilometer venue. And that's the first half of the season then in the books, Joey. Half the season still left to go, and we'll be done at the end of August.
It's going to be absolutely crazy. The PRL keeps on trucking, keeps on ticking. We've had a great season so far, and there's only more coming. And it's fantastic to know that we don't know who the champion is going to be. There's been times where there's been one driver who's really been head and shoulders above the field. They've been running away with the championship. You know they're going to win it from race 1. That is absolutely not the case here. It could be a different driver winning every single race in this series, and it could be a driver who won none of those races winning the championship. That's how crazy things have been.
Absolutely. I think we went into the end of last season not thinking anything could be as unpredictable as what we had, but somehow we got something even better. Such is the way of the Precision Racing League, and don't forget the coverage continues throughout. Joey Tebbin jumps from the commentary booth into the racetrack tomorrow night, and it rumbles on throughout the rest of the week. For now, it's time to bid you farewell on behalf of the team at RaceSpot behind the scenes. For Joey Tebbin alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in 7 days' time for our trip to the Ardennes. We wish you luck if you're racing in this weekend's iRacing Spa 24 Hours.